Is the German ambassador to Britain and says with Russia preparing for a spring offensive in Ukraine, the world may have to wait for negotiations to occur.
The Ukrainians know that this is going to come once the winter is over. And what we have to do is really to supply them with the maximum amount of support we can give to them. If at a certain stage it's necessary to sit down and talk with the Russians, yes, I have no doubt about it. But the crucial question is, has Putin understood that his imperialistic view, that he can occupy a country, that he will fail with that? And so far the Russians have not understood the lesson.
Only if they do, he says, can negotiations ever begin with Moscow. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
To recap the top stories, the WHO says China's hospitals appear to be filling up as COVID-19 surges. The UK's Health Secretary reportedly wants to fast-track a pay rise for NHS workers to head off further strikes. Japan's approving new rules to allow nuclear plants to operate longer than the previous 60 years. And Football Australia's issued more bans over the violent pitch invasion during an A-League match. That's the latest feature story news. Ollie Barrett reporting.
From the day an ancient cave dweller painted yet another f***ing elk hunt on a wall in 15,000 BC, to Gary Marshall's 1974 discovery of 13 weather-beaten North Dakotan coal miners that would go on to become the cast of Happy Days, The Onion looks back at This Week in History. On June 17, 1954, the effects of the previous month's historic Supreme Court ruling in Brown versus the Board of Education provided black students with the educational opportunity of experiencing racism firsthand in desegregated schools. Up until that point, African American pupils could only endure racial slurs and death threats in city streets or near their homes. And on June 24, 1784, 13-year-old Edward Warren took the first hot air balloon flight, becoming the first American to urinate on a crowd from 100 feet in the air. And that was what happened this week in history.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open. If you want to join us here, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight is Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Mark.
And bad news today.
Yeah, it couldn't get any worse.
Yeah, really bad news today.
It could have gotten worse.
It could have been worse. It could have been. I could be in prison.
The jury's
right
verdict couldn't have been worse.
Right.
Yeah, it was really bad. All 8 counts guilty today, unfortunately. We will be appealing in this Crypto 6 case. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty frustrating to see this, especially after it was a lot of optimism, I think, after the defense and after
the entire trial.
Yeah.
There was a lot of optimism because the prosecution didn't prove anything. They didn't show evidence for anything.
Nope, they really didn't.
I didn't. I agree. I sat out there. I thought that they put out a bunch of facts and then didn't do a great job of weaving them together. I do think that Seth did a pretty good job of weaving them together on the last day. Apparently a good enough job. And,
But not to prove something, right? Just to make a story that if you believe his version of the story and to make his assumptions, then maybe you could call him guilty. But
I don't disagree in any way. I'm just saying that when you lose, the best thing to do is to be the bigger man. And, it's sad. I'm sad. I'm gut punched. I'm gobstopped. I really hate it.
Yeah.
And I want it to not be true. But, they won.
Yeah, they sure did.
Congratulations.
The jury bought the story, and it's a shame.
It's not even just a matter of buying a story. I'm not even giving them that. They found you guilty of not paying taxes, knowing you had a burden to pay taxes. Meanwhile, the the IRS never even messaged you even once.
That's true.
And you are a church. So it's more than just that. They just don't like you. They wanted to make you guilty, and there was at least one woman hater on the jury, so.
A woman
hater?
I meant to say man hater.
Man hater.
She went and smiled at Ian at the end.
How could you tell? Does she have a mask on?
You can tell when someone's smiling.
All right, fair enough. So I mean, there's really not much to say. We obviously can't talk about the the appeal, but it is going to happen.
Yep.
I'd say that much.
There's appeals, and they will be on points of law. And,
Yep.
obviously you can't – we know they're listening. They're very clearly listening.
They talk about it every day. They
Hello, Georgina. Could you please go after the FBI agent that pulled the wires out of the back of my broadcast deck?
Yeah, she'll get right on
I'm
that.
still bitter about that. I mean, I still feel like he compromised the First Amendment rights of 500,000 Americans when he did that.
Yeah. She'll get right on that.
Well,
Mark, I'm
she
sure.
doesn't actually listen and then play exactly what you said in full context. She just makes it sound like you said something you
She
didn't.
picks one word out and then says, "Oh,"
And then creates something about it, or fabricates something around a word.
Yeah, like actually today she just straight up lied when she was trying to argue to the judge that Ian should be put into prison today. She told him Ian got on his radio show this week and said that he knew he wasn't supposed to contact Melanie Neighbors, but he did, and that just never happened. He didn't say that.
That is a full-on non-factual statement,
right?
Because I remember the situation. You're like, I think I can talk to her.
Yep. So that's the situation, and thank you to everybody who supported me and the rest of the Crypto 6. Aria also still has her sentencing to come. She took a guilty plea on the money transmitter count, so she's facing up to 5 years on that. There's a maximum of 70 years for all the charges that I'm facing, but due to, what do they call it?
Sentencing
guidelines, it won't be 70 years, but the prosecution said today they would be pushing for 20. In this particular case. Now,
that's a long time in federal prison.
I haven't reviewed the guidelines myself at this point yet, but I'll be doing that at some point.
I tried reviewing them and I couldn't figure them out.
Yeah, there's like a big book. It's really complicated.
It is very complicated.
So, who knows whether the prosecution's right on their their demand or estimate or whatever. So that all still remains to be seen. Sentencing is going to be in mid-April at this point, so several months from now.
The judge can still dismiss the charges, though.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing.
There's motions to dismiss charges.
They're pending.
That are still under advisement.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting point.
It doesn't seem like that's going to happen because normally judges don't dismiss charges when you ask them to. But
juries are sacrosanct. The judges don't mess with them very much.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said when we started this, the FBI doesn't tend to lose. They just don't tend to. When they bring charges, people look at them like, these are the white paladins of justice.
Yeah,
even though they admitted on the
really
stand,
shifty. They looked really shifty.
They didn't go after any scammers.
Yeah,
didn't. It's sad. I mean, you caught more scammers than every FBI agent that entered that courtroom combined.
That's a fact.
But they don't want to know about that. They don't want to hunt those people down because they know how difficult it is to get them.
Do you want to hear the FBI or the Department of Justice press release that they put out today?
Yeah, I do. Please.
Got that here. So according to them, this was released earlier today, Ian Freeman convicted on all counts relating to Bitcoin money laundering scheme. U.S. Attorney Jane E. Young announced that a federal jury convicted Ian Freeman, 42, of Keene, on all counts of money laundering, conspiracy to launder money, operation of an unlicensed money transmitting business, and tax evasion. There was also, by the way, a conspiracy to money launder in there as well.
And a conspiracy to money
they
transmit.
mentioned that. Sorry, they did mention that. Yeah, the other one was conspiracy to money transmit. According to trial exhibits and witness testimony during the 10-day trial, Freeman laundered over $10 million in proceeds of romance scams and other internet frauds.
That's not according to evidence. That's according to something somebody suggested may be true.
By exchanging U.S. dollars for Bitcoin, by failing to register his business with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network.
Because that would have changed anything about the scammers that they didn't even attempt to go after when they had good information on them.
Yeah, and I love the idea that they brought up over and over the these other places that sell Bitcoin. Come on, the scammers are using things like Coinbase. Mm-hmm. What would have stopped any one of these ladies, or in some cases men,
victims, you mean?
Scam victims, from going to Coinbase, registering, and buying Bitcoin with wired money?
Nothing at all. They would show their ID, and the scammer would have told them to go to the bank and send a wire to the exchange and walk them through that procedure.
Yeah, nothing would have changed it.
No. And again, this is all obviously there. Go ahead.
Now that we're at this, can you answer the question for me? Why is it that the rates on local Bitcoin are higher than rates on, say, Coinbase or Kraken? This was a point that Seth, the prosecutor, made today over and over again, and I don't know the answer.
You weren't there the day that he randomly chose a purchase and said, look, the rate on that is 2%. What's that? That's 2%. That's 8% less than 10%. It was just some random one. It's not like he looked up and found the average rate on Kraken.
Where was this 2%? The 2% rate on Kraken?
He looked at a bunch of purchases from Kraken, chose a random one,
and said 2%.
Said, well, see, you paid 2% for this one. It's only if you're buying like a whole bunch at once
Kraken
that would be so small.
Less than 2%. It would be like a 0.2% or something.
In that one that he said, but
so
I'm just saying,
explain it?
It's not average.
Sure, and I think I did explain this to the jury during during my testimony. But,
I don't remember that.
But in that case, maybe some people, or no, I don't know if this did come up. But some people don't want to have to go through an exchange. They want to have a personal, somebody take them through it. They want to have somebody to communicate with. They don't want to have to go through and try to understand how to use an exchange. And there's a market on local Bitcoins, and people compete in that market too.
They do.
So it's still
the allegation by the prosecution is that market is entirely composed of scammers.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's true. And I suppose you could, I certainly find it believable. I've met people who want to have their Bitcoins private. They want it not be known whence they came or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know that market is willing to pay.
Yeah, that's another reason somebody
But I just don't know.
Sure.
I don't believe for a second that everybody on local Bitcoins is some kind of scammer. And I also wonder, are there that many people that are willing to pay 10% for Bitcoins? You could just tumble?
People do that over at the vending machines all the time. In fact, a lot of the vending machines charge 20%.
They do. I understand that's a true statement. I just don't know why.
And they still require your ID.
Yeah.
The number 603-283-6160. You can join the show here. This is Free Talk Live. Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. convictions. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and the phones are open. If you want to join the show, you can do that at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. If you want to learn about Bitcoin, I understand that it might be a bit of a scary thing with all the people being arrested and charged and companies being targeted by the SEC and the FBI.
The prosecutor said over and over again in this trial that buying and selling Bitcoin is not illegal.
That's true.
Is it really scarier than just waiting for it to become CBDC, or dollars to become CBDC, and you have to just be controlled in every way by them?
Bank digital currency.
Right.
That's what that's called. So if you want to learn about Bitcoin, because you're right, Mark. You did point out that it's not illegal, but they say that you have to do it the way the government says to. But go to Bitcoin.com.
Has anybody done that isn't like a multi-million-dollar company? Is there a person out there that's buying and selling Bitcoin that hasn't had to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for government licenses in order to do this?
I'm sure there are plenty of them on localbitcoins.com right now.
You think there's people on Local Bitcoins that have money transmitter licenses in all 50 states?
Oh, I thought you were asking if there are people who hadn't done those things.
Oh. Because I don't think there are.
That the government wouldn't go after is what he's saying.
Yeah, there's probably some, but yeah, probably most of them no.
Okay.
But you can go and learn more about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, cryptocurrency, over at Bitcoin.com by clicking Get Started right there at the top of the page. You can also get the latest news headlines over at news.bitcoin.com. In fact, we do have news about the Bankman. He has been released on a $250 million bond, which they're saying is the largest ever, apparently, pretrial bond in history. So we can talk about his case, plus the Ron Paul story that we've been teasing for 2 nights now on Free Talk Live. And we've just been so busy on the phones in the last couple of days, we just haven't had a chance to really dig into what Ron Paul has to say. And I think it's important, so I do still want to get to it. But it's Ian, Bonnie, and Mark here in the studio tonight, and we've been talking a little bit about the very disappointing jury verdict today of all 8 counts. I was found guilty on all of them, even though there's not a single victim of what it was that they alleged that I did.
Well, they certainly act like everybody who was brought up on that witness stand was a victim of you. That's what they act like.
Even though they'll straight up say, they'll say it, that I didn't victimize anyone in these counts, but they say that I was involved in some sort of money laundering scheme without presenting any evidence of that whatsoever.
The people on the jury probably just went, I'm sad that these old people lost their money. Like I am too. But it doesn't mean punish whoever you see in front of you.
No.
and hope that makes it better. It didn't make those people better. The FBI's not even helping them actually get their money back.
The FBI admitted they're not investigating most of the scam artists.
I wonder if the jury...
It'll help them. They'll get 10% back or thereabouts by restituting all those victims 10% of
They're
Ian's
not.
money.
They're not
They're not doing that. That's what I was going to say. I wonder if the jury knows that no matter, even if Ian had to give the government $100 trillion, they're not going to give any of it to the scam victims. That they already explained that in Renee and Andy and Nobody's
zero restitution. There's zero restitution in this case, and they didn't name those people as victims. They named the banks as victims earlier on in a motion they filed months ago.
Okay, well, I'll bet you the jury thought that.
Yeah, I bet they did. They thought a lot of things that the feds wanted them to think. And now, sentencing comes up in April. We are going to appeal this. We're going to try to stay out of jail throughout the appeal. It's a possibility. However, I'm now cranked up on the bail conditions. So if you've been listening to the show since the raid on our home, the insane raid attack on our home in March of 2021, then you know that once I got out of jail on $200,000 bail in June of that year or late May. At that point, they had an ankle monitor on me and all kinds of, I couldn't leave the house without having a schedule put in. And it took us the bulk of a year to finally get rid of that. I think actually over a year to get rid of that ankle monitor. And it's been nice having it off.
Yeah, it was over a year. I think you got in late August or June off.
Or July or something, yeah.
You got it on in June, but you got it off in August. The next year.
Something like that. So it's been nice having that off. In this case today, the judge ordered me again to be on electronic monitoring, which means spyware is coming back on to my computer and my phone.
Prosecution was very particular about that, so the judge didn't forget.
Yeah, even though there's been no evidence of the concern is he's going to keep doing money laundering or something like that, even though there's been no evidence whatsoever in the last year and a half or whatever of me doing anything in regards to that.
What they were upset with at one point was there was an account that Bonnie did some work on, and they decided that you did that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
she was working at your direction.
They just said Ian made Bonnie do this, and they never let me talk about it or anything. They didn't ask me. They didn't do any research. They just told the judge that Ian made me do something with my own church's funds. It's ridiculous.
And that was back in August of 2021.
And the church hired you to manage things because, Ian can't touch funds. And I know that because I'm on the board of the church. And so we needed you to do those things. It's not that there's no merit to their argument on this. It's just that, the expectation
is... There's no merit to the argument.
They just locked up all your money.
What you're talking about isn't money laundering.
Nope.
It's not some sort of criminal thing where she's going on local
You didn't
Bitcoins.
money launder to start with, Ian. They
agreed.
just, 12 people in the state of New Hampshire decided you money laundered because they got sad that some old people lost money. Yeah. And I understand why they would get sad. I was sad too. But money laundering didn't occur. The opposite of money laundering occurred, and all one had to do was look at the evidence to see it. But the case was good enough. I mean, I was gobstopped that this money laundering, of all of them. Here I was sitting in the courtroom. Count 1.
Guilty.
Guilty. Count 2. Guilty. Now, these are the money transmitting, and of the ones that I expected him to be found guilty of, those were the ones I found most likely.
That's one of the more confusing on the law points kind of charges.
And, my expectation was that the next several charges would be not guilties. There's another 6 charges. I figured we're going to have not guilties in here because those charges didn't make sense to me. And they said on money laundering, count 3, guilty. I'm just like, what? How could they say that a person who said, I can't knowingly sell you Bitcoin, was saying, wink, wink, nod, nod, go ahead and buy Bitcoin at my machine? Mm-hmm. That's not how the law works.
Yeah,
it needs to be actionable. It needs to have occurred, and it didn't.
Yep.
And after that, the next time he came up to him and asked him if he can use his machine, he said, I can't tell you you can do that. And
he said, okay.
Yeah. Maybe it'd be one thing if he said, I'm going to do it anyway, and you just didn't say anything, but he agreed not to, it sounds like.
He sure did.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's a sad day.
You just have to be wanting to punish Ian to say that those things are guilty.
That's right. And that's the good example of jury, the reverse of jury nullification, right? Like, the jury can do anything they want to do.
It's true. I think that in large part, Ian is not understandable to the average person. So they're like, well, why would somebody do this? Clearly they would do this in order to scam people. If I was doing this, I would be trying to scam people. But that's not what Ian was trying to do.
There's more coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. Phones are open if you want to join the show. Bring up whatever is on your mind here on Free Talk Live.
My name is Angel Rach. I'm a mother of 2 teenage children, and I fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the right to use the medicine that saved my life. I've been permanently disabled for 10 years, with an inoperable brain tumor, wasting syndrome, and several other serious conditions. For 4 years, I was in a wheelchair, in so much pain I couldn't even hug my kids. The hardest part was looking in their eyes and seeing how much they were suffering because of my medical condition. The medicine that gave me my life back and gave my kids their mom back was cannabis, also known as medical marijuana. With medical marijuana, I can walk, maintain my weight, and I can be a mom. Without it, my doctors believe that I would die. To learn more about medical marijuana, contact Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or on the web at mpp.org.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. The World Health Organization says China's hospitals appear to be filling up as a latest surge of COVID-19 gathers pace. Beijing insists no one died of COVID on Wednesday and patients in intensive care remain relatively low. The WHO, though, says it's very concerned about the situation after China moved away from its strict zero COVID stance. UK Health Secretary Steve Barclay reportedly wants to fast-track a pay rise for NHS workers to try and head off further strike action. Nurses and ambulance workers are among those who've taken industrial action over pay in recent days. On Friday, strikes by Border Force workers will begin. Travel editor of The Sun newspaper, Lisa Minot, says they could have a major impact.
Bosses are saying they could actually be forced to close airports. There's 7 million people due to travel over the festive period, and I think the second round of strike action between the 28th and the 31st could be the real pinch point, as a lot of people will be returning back to the UK from after a Christmas break, could actually see that there is going to be serious delays.
Japan's approving a new regulation allowing nuclear plants to operate even longer than the previous 60 years. Japan's government's pushing for continued use of older reactors in a bid to meet its carbon reduction goals for 2030. Nora Weineck reports from Tokyo.
This change could allow Japan to restart many of its aging nuclear power plants, which have been offline since the triple reactor meltdown at the Fukushima No. 1 power plant in 2011. The decision comes just a day before the government is set to decide on a new energy policy, which is expected to emphasize the usage of nuclear power plants. However, realizing this plan may still take some time, as legislation is needed to implement the change, and the opposition is expected to strongly oppose the move. The announcement comes just after a local appeal to stop operations at a 46-year-old reactor in central Japan was rejected by a district court. Japan's government aims to raise the share of energy provided by nuclear power plants from 6.9% to over 20 by 2030. Nora Weineck, Tokyo.
Football Australia has issued more bans over the violent pitch invasion during an A-League match played in Melbourne. 8 more fans have been banned from attending Football Australia sanctioned matches and registering as a football participant. Sean Bindley reports.
Those punished are aged between 18 and 28 years old, with the ban spanning 5 to 25 years for a variety of violations. Earlier this week, lifetime bans were handed to 2 men over the pitch invasion during the Melbourne derby between City and Victory. It's also been revealed 4 people on banned lists were prevented from entering the stadium to watch the match last Saturday night. Football Australia continues to work with Victoria Police to identify others involved. So far, 13 alleged offenders have been charged.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Yeah!
It's Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. You can join the show. Bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Mark.
Don't forget, you can join us online. Just head on over to freetalklive.com. We have our own social media site, social media platform. It is running the Mastodon system, and you can go and join that over at social.freetalklive.com. That is a free thing that you can do, and it allows you to have more freedom to express yourself than a lot of these big tech corporations. So head over to social.freetalklive.com. As we continue here, I believe we have Joa from Breaking the Flaw on the line with us here. Joa, welcome.
Hello, do I sound okay?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
All right. Oh, I just wanted to call in and just say I'm very disappointed about what happened today.
Yeah.
I'm usually on a Thursday night, so that's why I wanted to call in.
Thank you.
Any usual listeners, and but yeah, and I'm glad to see that you're free-ish. I mean, like not locked up, you know. But I hope the best for your appeals, and I'm trying to make it to all those as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It may be quite a long time before an appeal gets heard at the First Circuit Court, as I understand it. There's quite a delay. It could be another year before that happens.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about all that and stuff, but I do want to compare this to something, and I made a tweet earlier, and this has to do with Sam Bankman, how he is able to post bail right away, and he's out free. You weren't able to do that.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
They fought against him being able to post bail for 3 months?
Right. If somebody's economically dangerous in the world, it's Sam Bankman-Fried.
Right.
Yeah, and it's provable. It's like the facts are already out there. Everyone knows that it's he funneled money and everything like that. It's a wild situation here, like with the FBI, targeting the wrong people, and then they're going after Bankman, but there's a good chance that he's going to get off on all this. And he does have same bail conditions, or similar conditions, where he is ankle monitored and forced to be in home confinement in California at his mom's place.
Oh, okay. I thought he flew to New York.
He did, and then he flew out in his private jet to California.
Wow.
So yeah.
You mean the people he ripped off's private jet?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a good
They
way
took
to put
everything they could get of Ian's. Everything but his home, basically.
Well, so I guess Bankman put his estate up for collateral, similar to what you had done, and
it was his parents.
He used his parents' house?
That's what it says here, according to CNBC.
Did he buy them the house?
I don't know, but according to
how can you use someone else's property for collateral?
Anybody can post that bond. So likely his parents posted bond for him.
Yeah, according to the story at CNBC, the terms of his PR bond were agreed to by prosecutors and Bankman's lawyers. It says here that his bond was secured by equity in his family home and by the signatures of his parents and two other individuals with, quote, considerable assets. In addition to the $250 million package, which prosecutors called the largest ever pretrial bond, the former crypto billionaire will be required to wear an electronic monitoring bracelet, submit to mental health counseling, and restrict his travel within and between the Northern District of California and Southern and Eastern Districts of New York.
So he can travel the country? You
just
can't even
between those districts.
Still? The district in California? I mean, New York and California?
Apparently.
It's like all of the United States that anyone wants to go to, basically.
Well, no, what I mean is I think they mean he can't go outside of those districts without special permission, meaning that he can fly from the Northern District of California to the Southern and Eastern Districts of New York and vice versa, but that's it.
Well, you weren't allowed to go to New York for actual business reason.
For accepting an award for this talk show and the Freedom of Speech Award, they denied my ability to do that. But yeah, you guys make a great point that they fought tooth and nail to keep me behind bars for months. I was there 69 days before the judge in this case finally ordered essentially overrided the order of the magistrates. The magistrates, which are the lowest level of federal judge, had ordered that I stay in jail, and then the actual judge in the case ordered that I have to be released because it's just a financial so-called crime.
Well, it's not like he did that right away. It took him a long time to finally decide that.
These things take, federal court is slow, right?
It took him
Like,
multiple
it takes a long
hearings.
time.
It wasn't like his first opportunity. He took it. It was his third or fourth opportunity. Finally, he took it.
Yeah, Joe, anything else you want to share here tonight?
No, I think that was pretty much it. It's a good comparison. I think they're going after the wrong people, and a lot of times. But Bankman is a good one they're going after, and he's connected. So
I don't think they're really
who
like
knows?
I know this is just a theory, but my theory is that they're not really like going after him. This is just another step in the laundering. He gets quote unquote caught. He pays the money to the government. It's laundered to the government.
Right.
Joe, thanks for the call tonight, man. I appreciate it. Check Joe out over at Breaking the Flaw. It's his channel on both Odyssey and YouTube, and I appreciate your time, man. All right, so we got more here at 603-283-6160. Since we're talking about it, in the Bankman case of FTX, this failed cryptocurrency exchange, as you might have guessed, his cohorts are turning on him. His ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, I bet they are.
Yeah, as you would have expected that to happen. His ex-girlfriend, Ms.
Which I think is
Ellison.
interesting and instructive in your case. People didn't really turn on you.
Not the other not the co-defendants, at least.
Yeah, the co-defendants didn't turn on you. There was, the incident with Melanie, and she got scared, and
Melanie was like an acquaintance who is crazy and so obese that it has to affect her brain. So it's not like she's just like Ian's best friend, and she was just like, you know what? I know everything about this man. He's actually bad, and I'm doing the right thing and going to the government. She's just a complete idiot. And
well, I think she was mistaken in this case, and I don't think her testimony was meaningful, but
it didn't really even help
say
the prosecution.
That I understand what it's like to have small kids and feel like that's what, you're protecting or whatever.
Well, if you're that stupid, you shouldn't have small kids. If you're,
Either way, most people, the vast majority of people, did not turn on Ian.
Right.
They just refused to do so. Even the people that testified for the prosecution in this circumstance said, nope, Ian's a great guy.
Yep, that's right. And it didn't help, apparently.
Yeah. Like the jurors just had it in their mind that you were a bad guy or something, or maybe you should have known, I guess.
It's ridiculous. We continue here. Bad Slave in New Hampshire. Go ahead. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hi. Thanks again for taking my call.
Sure.
I am ashamed of the people of New Hampshire that are trying to cage you, and I'm just I've been upset since I found out about the verdict earlier, and I don't know what my answer is. I don't know how do I solve this. It's just disgusting.
Yeah.
And my only question for you, Ian, that I can think of at the moment is, did Mark Sisti have any comment about the potential for, the appeal?
Yeah, we're definitely appealing.
Mark Sisti was, vehemently of the opinion that an appeal is in the process. And the judge, actually, when I was sitting up there, the judge said that there were appealable issues. So, that's something that's going to happen. But I think that more importantly, now's the opportunity to look at what it takes to soothe oneself in this circumstance. This is loss. It's sad. Mourning, it makes sense. You got to figure out what works for you for soothing. Don't
Thank
drink.
you, Bad Slave, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. There's more coming up here. It is Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it
And once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can take control of the airwaves here. You can bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Mark.
Join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features that we have there for you. I do want to say thank you to Robert Grogan, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program. You can join Robert over at amps.freetalklive.com. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to get behind what we do here on Free Talk Live to help us bring the ideas of liberty and freedom and peace to more people all around the country and around the world, which, of course, obviously people need because they just do whatever government tells them to do. And it's really sad. But we're here doing it 7 nights a week, so if you want to help us out, then please go and do as Robert Grogan has done and join as a silver level, or you can go higher than that if you want, but all we ask is $5 a month. over at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. You get some perks like access to the AMP Only podcast that has our full radio show without the recorded commercials. That's one of the benefits that you can get, and there are others. So go to learn about it over at amps.freetalklive.com. You can get signed up there. Cameron is on the line, I believe, calling us from New Hampshire. Go ahead, Cameron.
Yes.
Welcome, sir.
Now, I'm going to channel my Conan stuff right now, where I believe it's these NPCs and these people everywhere that they just see somebody going up on the stand being like, they're here for a reason, and they're a bad person, and it's bad, and we got to convict, and that's all there is to it. Because I mean, it's disgusting. That's what's happened in the last 2 weeks I've been seeing. You know what I mean?
It's the government said so.
Yeah, it's really tragic.
Yeah.
I mean, I had thought, okay, juries, I know they're not reliable. I know. I've seen the trials.
I'm no fan.
I've seen juries convict my friends, my peaceful friends before. I knew the odds weren't good, but I also knew the feds really didn't have much of a case.
They sure didn't. I sat in there the vast majority of hours that this occurred, and it just seemed like it was so flimsy.
Yeah.
Like they didn't hit they don't have the elements of the crime. But
I knew I didn't do anything to harm anyone else, and I knew they had a lousy case.
Right,
and
the old shadow of a doubt,
Yeah, reasonable doubt.
Reasonable doubt, yeah.
Reasonable doubt.
There was plenty of that in this case.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that would find Ian guilty of money laundering does not understand the jury instructions surrounding reasonable doubt.
Right. But that's the point of my call is, like, these people can't be trusted. I don't know what you got to do.
Yeah,
I know. I just want to be able to get away from the federal government, but you just can't.
No, they can't be trusted, unfortunately. But my thought was, okay, well, this is still the best chance I have, right? Because you could take a plea deal, and then you're guaranteed to be guilty. You cannot undo, basically, a plea deal for the most part. There's very, very rare circumstances that would allow you to undo a plea deal. And then I'm at their mercy in that particular case, and you don't get the chance to file any kind of an appeal on a plea. And so it's like, well, I know juries aren't particularly reliable, but I figured I had a better chance in New Hampshire than I did in someplace like New York, the Southern District of New York. Sure. And to the judge's credit, at least he allowed us to put on our defense, unlike, in the Ross Ulbricht trial where they just weren't even allowed to have a defense or call witnesses or whatever. So I mean, we gave it our best shot, and we went down.
I think you struck gold, to some extent. I was rooting for you, and I was, going high on it. And I was like, damn, Ian might have this wrapped up, you get one juror, but it's just, so disappointing.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Cameron, anything else you want to share tonight?
No, that's it. I just got to exacerbate my thoughts. I mean, I'm here with you guys in spirit, I'm watching you live, and I don't know.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the call and the thoughts, and thank you. I know you're a longtime listener and supporter, so I definitely appreciate it. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you. Yeah, you've got to figure out a way to soothe yourself. You have to, don't dwell on this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not going to change anything.
It won't change it, that's for sure.
You can sit there and you can lose sleep. You can drink yourself into oblivion.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't wake up in the morning, you drink so much. It happens.
Yeah, that's not good.
When you do wake up in the morning, maybe you wish you didn't because your head hurts so bad. You've just got to figure out a way to not dwell on it and give yourself time to heal, give yourself time to mourn. All these things are acceptable. But the woulda, shoulda, couldas.
You're going and thinking about the past, like if it would have happened like this, it's just not good for you.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. I mean, it's just a system that doesn't work.
And it actually hurts you.
And if you have systems for dealing with loss and sorrow, I'd love to hear them right now. The number is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. I'm definitely feeling that.
Well, I think you said something good the day beforehand, which was, and I'm sure you'll correct me on my recollection of it, but it was something to the effect of that God has a plan, and if it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, there's still something, there's an intention here. There's something that is, there's a reason for this, whatever that is. Even if we can't see it clearly at the time, it will probably become clearer in hindsight later on.
Right. Your vision of what God is may differ from mine, and I understand that just go ahead and work with this statement as best you can. This one's for me, so that I can work through. God has a plan. And if this being that created all that we can see, all of the known universe and all the unknown universe and everything, the dark matter, if this being wants a thing to occur, it must be for a reason. And the things that are come out of that thing, whatever that is, are presumably for the best for those who,
It's not even presumably. It's you can know that it's for the best. That's just what evolution is. It's that the things that God chooses, God's will is love, and love is just higher and higher evolution. And I really think that the only way out is through this, and the only way is up. And
I agree.
If you were God, you wouldn't ask little hairless monkeys running around on the planet, living their lives. They're short. They're instantaneous lives. How you should run things.
Mm-hmm.
You would run it the way that you need to run it in order for the best things to happen. And the rain falls on the just and the unjust. And Ian did what Ian thought was best, which is, and the church was behind him on this.
Mm-hmm.
That is to say, I was behind him on this.
Mm-hmm.
He asked, can the church spread Bitcoin, since Bitcoin is a sacrament of the church? It's a peaceful and just currency. And I said yes, because this is so. And he did what he thought was best. And, maybe the consequences of that, maybe we made mistakes. I don't know the answer. I can't say. But I can say that if you think you're doing the right thing and you're trying to do the right thing, the vast majority of the time things will work out for the best. And if this is the best, this is the best.
I want to go to Sydney on the line in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Sydney.
Hey, guys. It's been very upsetting hearing about this verdict. And I think Mark, he summed it up pretty well right there. But personally, to deal with it, I get upset first. I think it's very unfair what they've done to you, and everybody can see that. And I think, my question for you, I guess, and as time goes by, you can change your answer, but is, would you do it again? Would you continue to do it if you could, or if, do you continue to stand by your actions? Again, that answer can change as time goes by, but I'm curious right now how you feel.
Well, it was, I felt it was my calling to do this as a mission to spread peace. I still believe that is ultimately what that Bitcoin is doing. It is undermining the warmongering state, and the more dollars we can get out of circulation and into things like Bitcoin and gold or silver, the more disempowered that state is. Were there some things that I might have done differently in hindsight in that path, in that process? Yeah, I think so. But ultimately, I don't think that it would have made a difference, because these scam artists are so good at what they do. They are really persuasive. They fooled not only their victims, but they also fooled me. I was one of their victims.
It makes me so angry to even think that Ian was spending all this time trying to spread Bitcoin and get it in normal people's hands who wanted it, and presumably there were just as many people who wanted it, but they were taking up Ian's time, and it really pisses me off that there's people out there that do this, and I wish there was an easy answer. But listeners, it is not give money to the FBI and they'll go after them, because they explained in this case that they will not do that. They didn't even try. They had a lady testify that she had been talking to her scammer up to that week, and she told them, and they hadn't asked her any questions about it. They didn't try to help her at all.
Nope.
Catch that scammer.
They were trying to catch me. Thank you for the call, Sydney. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. You can join us on Free Talk Live. Hour 2's next.
Anyone can publish on the internet, but not everyone is publishing material suited for online reading. According to the Yahoo Style Guide, it cautions that internet content has a few seconds, 3 or less, to encourage people to read more, to take action, or navigate to another one of your pages. So make it easy for readers to pick and choose. Isn't that the way you poke around online? Use short words, short sentences, short paragraphs, bulleted lists, and short pages. Front load what you write, putting the most important information at the beginning of headlines and paragraphs and sentences. Same goes for your keywords, what someone would likely type into the search box on Yahoo or Google. For more tips on communicating better online or in a job interview or everyday life, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. The World Health Organization says China's hospitals appear to be filling up as a latest surge of COVID-19 gathers pace. Beijing insists no one died of COVID on Wednesday, and patients in intensive care remain relatively low. The WHO, though, says it's very concerned about the situation after China moved away from its strict zero COVID stance. UK Health Secretary Steve Barclay reportedly wants to fast-track a pay rise for NHS workers to try and head off further strike action. Nurses and ambulance workers are among those who've taken industrial action over pay in recent days. On Friday, strikes by Border Force workers will begin. Travel editor of The Sun newspaper, Lisa Minot, says they could have a major impact.
Bosses are saying they could actually be forced to close airports. There's 7 million people due to travel over the festive period, and I think the second round of strike action between the 28th and the 31st could be the real pinch point, as a lot of people will be returning back to the UK from after a Christmas break, could actually see that there is going to be serious delays.
Japan's approving a new regulation allowing nuclear plants to operate even longer than the previous 60 years. Japan's government's pushing for continued use of older reactors in a bid to meet its carbon reduction goals for 2030. Nora Weineck reports from Tokyo.
This change could allow Japan to restart many of its aging nuclear power plants, which have been offline since the triple reactor meltdown at the Fukushima No. 1 power plant in 2011. The decision comes just a day before the government is set to decide on a new energy policy, which is expected to emphasize the usage of nuclear power plants. However, realizing this plan may still take some time, as legislation is needed to implement the change, and the opposition is expected to strongly oppose the move. The announcement comes just after a local appeal to stop operations at a 46-year-old reactor in central Japan was rejected by a district court. Japan's government aims to raise the share of energy provided by nuclear power plants from 6.9% to over 20 by 2030. Nora Weineck, Tokyo.
Football Australia has issued more bans over the violent pitch invasion during an A-League match played in Melbourne. 8 more fans have been banned from attending Football Australia sanctioned matches and registering as a football participant. Sean Bindley reports.
Those punished are aged between 18 and 28 years old, with the ban spanning 5 to 25 years for a variety of violations. Earlier this week, lifetime bans were handed to 2 men over the pitch invasion during the Melbourne derby between City and Victory. It's also been revealed 4 people on banned lists were prevented from entering the stadium to watch the match last Saturday night. Football Australia continues to work with Victoria Police to identify others involved. So far, 13 alleged offenders have been charged.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more today on the German perspective of the situation in Ukraine after President Biden announced another $2 billion in military assistance for Kiev during President Volodymyr Zelensky's Wednesday visit to Washington. The German government is among those in Europe holding out the possibility of a negotiated settlement between Russia and Ukraine and argues that it's important to keep channels of communication open with Vladimir Putin, despite US claims that he's a war criminal.
We need to be patient. We need to give Ukraine the necessary time and make sure that the West stays united and supplies Ukraine with what is needed.
Miguel Berger is the German ambassador to Britain and says with Russia preparing for a spring offensive in Ukraine, the world may have to wait for negotiations to occur.
The Ukrainians know that this is going to come once the winter is over. And what we have to do is really to supply them with the maximum amount of support we can give to them. If at a certain stage it's necessary to sit down and talk with the Russians, yes, I have no doubt about it. But the crucial question is, has Putin understood that his imperialistic view, that he can occupy a country, that he will fail with that? And so far the Russians have not understood the lesson.
Only if they do, he says, can negotiations ever begin with Moscow. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
To recap the top stories, the WHO says China's hospitals appear to be filling up as COVID-19 surges. The UK's Health Secretary reportedly wants to fast-track a pay rise for NHS workers to head off further strikes. Japan's approving new rules to allow nuclear plants to operate longer than the previous 60 years. And Football Australia's issued more bans over the violent pitch invasion during an A-League match. That's the latest feature story news. Ollie Barrett reporting.
Shortly after beginning his first date with area woman Pauline Geary, smitten local man Brad Holtman told Onion reporters he couldn't believe that the woman was also a fan of the 1960s British rock band, The Beatles.
We were just talking about music, and she mentioned that she liked the Beatles, which is crazy because I love the Beatles, actually. Yeah, funny thing is, I was not really even looking forward to the date. I figured we'd get a drink or whatever, but it's turning out a lot cooler than I thought it was going to. I mean, she's just such a huge fan. She knows all the Beatles names. She even owns some of their albums. I've been a Beatles fan since like 6th or 7th grade, so I don't want to get too excited and jump into something. So I think I'm going to ask her if she's ever seen The Godfather, which is probably my top 5 movies of all time.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We do have other things to talk about tonight, and you know what? I'd like to get into them just because I feel like I've said enough about this, and I think we left it on a positive note about what God is doing and that sort of thing, which we discussed at the end of the last hour. So I feel like that was sufficient, unless you guys disagree.
Nope, I'm fine with moving on.
All right, with you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Mark.
All right, so there's not much, I don't think, else to say about the FTX situation. We did give you the update that Bankman has been granted bail. He has some restrictions, sounding similar to the ones that I had when I got out. However, they just let him right out. Unlike me, where they argued vehemently to keep me in jail, despite the fact that I hadn't actually victimized anyone, and they're alleging Bankman stole like billions of dollars.
I wonder if he's a sophisticated cyber criminal.
Yeah, are they saying the same things about him as
he certainly is?
Yeah, that's good. So anyway, that's one other
but he's
story.
a well-connected, sophisticated cyber criminal.
Mom and Dad have a fair amount of money, and friends who apparently have quite a bit because they put up $250 million bond to do that. Now, Ron Paul has this story that we talked about briefly 2 nights ago, and we never really got into the meat of it, where he's talking about this so-called mother of all economic crises. This is published over at the Ron Paul Institute at ronpaulinstitute.org. Citing Nouriel Roubini, the former advisor to the International Monetary Fund, who is calling this current situation the mother of all economic crises. And Ron Paul explains that the Fed has been trying to eliminate price inflation with a series of interest rate increases. So far, these rate increases have not significantly reduced price inflation, and that's because rates remain at historic lows. Yet the rate increases have had negative economic effects, including a decline in the demand for new homes. Increasing interest rates make it impossible for many middle and working class Americans to afford a monthly mortgage payment.
Hold on. So, I mean, obviously, if you're dealing, you can't print a bunch of money, which is what happened.
Yes.
The numbers differ. It's difficult to know, but I think that it's fair to say half of all money that has been created from the United States since its inception, this thing we call the U.S. dollar, the Federal Reserve Note, half of them were created since January 2020.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And if you double the money supply, necessarily prices must go up.
They're going to go up,
right?
For sure.
Because there may be, in 2 years' time, going on 3 now, you will see more things made, and thus it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll go, if you double the money supply, that prices will double. But they're going to go close to that. And because there's only so many things out there. There's only so many cars.
Price of produce apparently has gone up 80% in the last year.
In the last month?
No, it's 30% in November.
30%. Yeah, sorry.
Well, wow, that's still a lot.
That is a lot.
That's because it still costs a lot of money to grow vegetables, and there's no government subsidies for those. But I mean, there's basically as many cars in America right now as there were in January 2020.
There are government subsidies for vegetables. In fact, it ruins them. It makes
Which
their price.
Which vegetable are you talking about?
Well, definitely corn.
Corn is not a vegetable. Corn's a grain.
Okay, a grain.
Okay.
So there's none for like regular vegetables?
Right. Grain, the subsidies are just, they turn the fire hose on for grains, but not for vegetables generally. So there's about as many cars as there were in January 2020 as there are now in January 2023. And that means that cars should be worth about twice as what they're going to be. Now, we haven't gotten there yet, but that's kind of the point. The point is that they're raising the interest rates on money in order to restrict the money supply, because that's how it works. Money is borrowed into existence by debt, either the U.S. government or the American people. When you go get a mortgage, the money's borrowed into existence.
That's what a note is in monetary terms, right? So if you look at the greenback, Federal Reserve note, the dollar is a note. It is evidence of debt. And not only can the Federal Reserve print these things out, but so can the banks. The banks don't have the printing press, but they just increment numbers in a computer, and voila, they have more money more dollars to lend out to you, which you then have to pay back at interest.
Yes, well, that's how that works, and that's how the system works, and that's why the banks do what they do, is because of the interest. So when they raise the rates, they're restricting the money supply because fewer people are borrowing, just as he's reported right here.
Yeah.
There's not as many people buying houses as there were.
It's a disincentive to borrow.
And there's less money being made, but the money's already been made. Price inflation is a trailing indicator of inflation. The powers that be,
increase in the money supply.
The people that the mouth-breathing dullards that you voted for and brought into existence, those people thought the best way to solve the government weaponized common cold was to lock everybody in their houses and print a bunch of money. All right? So chickens roost, ladies and gentlemen. This is, if you advocated for it, this is your problem of your creation.
Yep, and now what do they got? A $1.7 billion or trillion? Was it trillion? Yeah, $1.7 trillion spending bill that they're working on.
Right, they've got that, and of course they'll vote that into existence too. They'll argue about the fringes, but I mean the vast majority of it will go through.
It's just like there are so many people that sat around getting $600 a week or whatever it was to not work, and if they want to complain about the prices of things, it's just like I don't even want to hear it from them.
Yeah, how are they? You had your vacation, you had your paid vacation.
How's it going
and now it's time to pay for it, and this is how it goes, and it's going to go this way again in the future in your lifetime. If you think there's such thing as a free lunch, you're a fool, or you work for the government. One of the two. And that's, so the prices are going to continue to go up. It doesn't matter if they shut off every dollar. if they claw back 10% of the dollars, prices are still going to go up.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And you've got to pay for it. You go out drinking all night long with your friends, you drink till 6 a.m., then you're going to have a headache. Now, here it is. It's time to convalesce. And the older you get, the harder it is to recover. Good luck.
I've been saying for like months that the whole problem with the United States is that people truly don't believe that they live in a world of cause and effects.
Right.
It's not just this situation. It's like lots of different situations. Like the jury, I'm sorry, taking it back to Ian's trial. The jury, they found Ian guilty of thought crimes, and they don't see how that might come back to haunt them.
I don't know
thought
how
crimes are illegal now.
I don't know how it's necessarily going to haunt them either, but the people that were
or the people they love.
The people that were swindled in this circumstance clearly thought somehow that they could not do due diligence and that things would work out. You know, in some cases, Ian was able to catch the baddies. In a very few instances, you were able to catch the baddies and even knew that the baddies were doing bad things. But I know that in many cases, you thought these were your good customers.
Yeah, that's right.
And
they had lied to me, those people.
You know, many of those people on the stand lied, and many of them continued to lie. They lied on the stand about the questions that you asked them and things like that.
And I mean, it wasn't that long ago that this happened. If these people believe all these details, but they don't remember you calling and asking, like, do you actually know your husband? I just don't believe that. I believe that they were told by the prosecution, they were like, this is going to be an issue. So you're going to say that when he called, he just asked, do you want to... Why would you even do that? You don't... That's not... Seth Hipple said that was proof to show a bank that you at least tried. There's no proof of a phone call. You can't be like, I can prove that I made this phone call.
Well, you could if the records were available, and I'm sure the feds have them, but they didn't turn them over.
You mean the audio recording?
No, the call logs.
Yeah.
Call logs. But I think that Google...
But when you're talking to a bank, you wouldn't be like, I have proof I sent this person a phone call. Like, they could just say, no, you didn't.
Wouldn't you have those call records in your Google Voice account?
No, it would have been on the cell phone account, and I don't believe those are available past
a certain number of
months.
So there's a different Google Voice account on your cell phone than there is on your computer? Can't you access that account?
No, I don't think they have those records past a certain point.
Oh,
at least
they stop at some point.
But it still wouldn't prove what was said, you know?
Certainly wouldn't.
The number is 603-283-6160. We can continue here more about what Ron Paul has to say about the mother of all economic crises. That's on the way. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. 603-283-6160. Phones are open, and this is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, the show where anyone can call about whatever they want. And we do mean anyone.
You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Helen.
About almost 3 decades ago this fall, little creatures appeared in my consciousness.
Little creatures?
They introduced themselves to me as Matilda and Mumford Rabbit.
Huh.
They come from a higher planet, more spiritually evolved. Matilda Rabbit has a habit of using God's gift of free speech. Matilda Rabbit has the habit of snoring in her sleep, but not before she does implore the Lord her soul to keep.
Is it the same God?
Oh, yeah. Jesus is their word and way on all planets.
Why would they care about Jesus? They don't even live on this planet.
Right. How would they even know? Because Jesus was on our earth, right?
Well, Jesus is not on this planet alone. He's everywhere.
Did he die on a cross in outside of Jerusalem and the other planets too?
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can't do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring Simon to the rally.
Walk with me.
Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa. Hey. Who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video or audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't going to make it.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Why are you running from me?
Because you scared me.
What
am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones open if you want to join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. We got more with Ron Paul in moments. About inflation and what he's calling the mother of all economic crises. It's Ian, Bonnie, and Mark here in the studio tonight. You can join us online. Just go to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features that we have waiting for you there. Bullion Max, great way to get yourself some silver and gold because inflation is a real problem. And one of the ways that you can solve that problem personally is to diversify out of the dollar and into other things like gold and silver, which may be the most stable assets in recorded history. You can get yours from bullionmax.com/FTL. You don't have to deal with a salesperson, and your precious metals ship fully insured directly to your home. It's fast, it's easy, and you get a special deal because you're a Free Talk Live listener. You get employee pricing on Bullion Max's Silver Starter Kit, which is 5 ounces of silver from some of the world's most popular mints, and they'll throw in a free gold back as well. We're big fans of the gold back here on Free Talk Live. You can go to bullionmax.com/FTL to get yours. It is a limited time offer, so you can start your new investment with bullionmax.com/FTL. Today we go to your phone calls and thoughts, then more from Ron Paul. We got Matt Roach on the line here with us here, normally with us on some Thursday nights. Matt, you're, I think, back home for Christmas with your mom, but welcome. What's up?
He's one of those people you have to call him his first and last name for some reason.
You do, and I don't know why. Well, I mean, there's a lot of Matts out there. But first of all, I want to say, Ian, we love you.
Oh, thanks, man.
Very much.
Appreciate it.
And we support you to no end. You are probably, you are the Jedi Master. I cannot believe how calm you stay through all of this. And
Indeed.
And just, you are, if there ever was a real church, it's yours.
Oh,
And,
I appreciate that.
Just walking your talk day in, day out, and you're one of the most respectable people I've ever known in my life.
That's one of the most insulting parts about all this is the attack against the Shire Free Church that has gone on through this, where the feds have called it a quote-unquote purported church and just basically made it out to be this. Even in his closing statement, Seth Aframe, the prosecuting attorney, purposefully misstated what actually happened. He made it sound like the church was cooked up as this sort of idea that came about after I had started selling Bitcoin. It's like, no, that happened more than a year before, the Bitcoin thing, that idea came. So it's like he completely had the order of operations incorrect.
And he just straight up said it was a fake church.
He did do that, and it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the federal government themselves has granted 501c3 church status to the Satanic Temple, which is a group of atheists. So it's like, they can be a church. They don't even believe in God, So, what else, Matt?
Yeah. Well, so I want to know. First of all, I want to say that judge was clearly not impartial, and that was a dead giveaway when he referred to you as. What did he say? I went online and I looked up what you people believe.
You people.
You remember when he called you people?
No, I don't.
I actually didn't hear that, but
it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I went on. I looked into what you people believe or something like exactly. I remember he said you people. Whenever you hear the words you people come out of a federal judge's mouth, that's no longer an impartial judge. That's clearly.
Well, he may not be impartial, but he seemed to have been the best judge that I've seen at a trial yet.
Yeah,
I won't say at a trial. I would say at a federal trial maybe, but there's been some in New Hampshire that have been literally pissed that they had to tell the person that they can go home and they did nothing wrong because they wanted to side with the cops so bad, but they just couldn't because it was it was against the law. This judge I think the judge had a duty to drop these charges as soon as the prosecution rested and didn't prove anything. And he didn't. But
no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
There's a question of whether, this is a very big deal. Cryptocurrency is not a small deal. And this doesn't I don't think this case has anything to do with, it might have a little bit of, byproduct to do with Ian in particular, being a Liberty voice and being a loud Liberty voice. But the most damaging part for the power structure that is Ian's speaking about cryptocurrency on a regular basis. And every time I'm on Free Talk Live, I'm Monero Matt. I'm always talking about Monero, and this is exactly why I'm talking about Monero. Monero is so important to the future of a free and secure society of people who have a little bit of privacy in it. If you want some bureaucrat staring at every single transaction you make for the rest of your life, your children's life, and your grandchildren's life, to go ahead and keep using dollars, they're going to give you a digital currency to use that they are going to be able to ogle at will. They're going to push a button, your name's going to come up, and they're going to be able to say, where did this $128 go? Where did this $14 go? Why didn't you report this on your taxes? You just feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, they want your Venmo, $600 Venmo transactions.
Right. They're already doing it. So when that central bank digital currency comes out, which it will, as soon as they get, the masses up to speed on how digital currency works, that's exactly what they're going to do. The answer to that is privacy coins. This institution has got to go, and it needs to be replaced with something that can be useful, and privacy coins are perfect.
Yeah, you're right. They really hate Monero.
Yeah,
the feds really hate it.
The government literally said that the only reason that somebody would want privacy is because they're doing something wrong.
Did they literally actually say that? Because, it's kind of it's one of those questions that people ask. Well, what do you want your privacy for?
Well, they didn't. They literally said that you can infer that Ian is guilty because these people want privacy. Therefore, if they want privacy, then he should have known they were criminals.
That's right. What they suggested.
And the most interesting part of the whole case to me is why I think proof that Ian petrifies these people to death. I think proof of that is, what if Ian wasn't selling crypto? What if Ian was selling Beanie Babies or baseball cards or rare Legos? Why would that be any different than cryptocurrency? Because Beanie Babies aren't money. And according to the government, cryptocurrency is also not money.
Oh, no, they certainly
depends
are.
on which agency you're talking about.
According to the judge, Bitcoin is quote-unquote funds because some other judge said so.
But no legislator has ever come out and actually done this the right way and decided what it actually is. So it's just a bunch of crap.
It's legislating from the bench.
Yeah, that's the most frustrating part of this is a bureaucracy says a thing, a judge supports the thing that was said by the bureaucracy, and it becomes law. Well, there was never one of these liars and thieves that we elect up there as and call honorable
or representative.
A representative. There never one of them voted on this. They haven't managed to get themselves, pulled away from their fight long enough to do this.
Well, there's supposed to be a check on this, and it's supposed to be called the jury, but unfortunately the government has that covered with the public school system, and they made people stupid enough that they can just say, listen, we're saying a thing, you have to believe it, and then they'll do whatever the government wants.
Guilty.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Matt.
And I hear the music coming up, but I have one more thing to add.
Okay, well, hang on. We'll bring you back here for that. Stand by. More with Matt here in moments. The number 603-283-6160. Phones are open. If you want to join the show, still got more from Ron Paul. Hopefully we'll be able to get to it on the way here tonight. Your calls, of course, come first, and we're going to more of them on the way. This is Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. The World Health Organization says China's hospitals appear to be filling up as a latest surge of COVID-19 gathers pace. Beijing insists no one died of COVID on Wednesday, and patients in intensive care remain relatively low. The WHO, though, says it's very concerned about the situation after China moved away from its strict zero COVID stance. UK Health Secretary Steve Barclay reportedly wants to fast-track a pay rise for NHS workers to try and head off further strike action. Nurses and ambulance workers are among those who've taken industrial action over pay in recent days. On Friday, strikes by Border Force workers will begin. Travel editor of The Sun newspaper, Lisa Minot, says they could have a major impact.
Bosses are saying they could actually be forced to close airports. There's 7 million people due to travel over the festive period, and I think the second round of strike action between the 28th and the 31st could be the real pinch point, as a lot of people will be returning back to the UK from after a Christmas break, could actually see that there is going to be serious delays.
Japan's approving a new regulation allowing nuclear plants to operate even longer than the previous 60 years. Japan's government's pushing for continued use of older reactors in a bid to meet its carbon reduction goals for 2030. Nora Weineck reports from Tokyo.
This change could allow Japan to restart many of its aging nuclear power plants, which have been offline since the triple reactor meltdown at the Fukushima No. 1 power plant in 2011. The decision comes just a day before the government is set to decide on a new energy policy, which is expected to emphasize the usage of nuclear power plants. However, realizing this plan may still take some time, as legislation is needed to implement the change, and the opposition is expected to strongly oppose the move. The announcement comes just after a local appeal to stop operations at a 46-year-old reactor in central Japan was rejected by a district court. Japan's government aims to raise the share of energy provided by nuclear power plants from 6.9% to over 20 by 2030. Nora Weineck, Tokyo.
Football Australia has issued more bans over the violent pitch invasion during an A-League match played in Melbourne. 8 more fans have been banned from attending Football Australia sanctioned matches and registering as a football participant. Sean Bindley reports.
Those punished are aged between 18 and 28 years old, with the ban spanning 5 to 25 years for a variety of violations. Earlier this week, lifetime bans were handed to 2 men over the pitch invasion during the Melbourne derby between City and Victory. It's also been revealed 4 people on banned lists were prevented from entering the stadium to watch the match last Saturday night. Football Australia continues to work with Victoria Police to identify others involved. So far, 13 alleged offenders have been charged.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. The phones are open, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Tonight it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Mark.
And you can join us online anytime you want at freetalklive.com. We have feeds like our podcast RSS feed that you can access over at feeds.freetalklive.com. It'll show you different links to different ways that you can download and automatically receive the show in various different forms. So check out feeds.freetalklive.com for that information. We are still taking your calls, of course, about whatever you want. A lot of people obviously calling about today's very sad verdict in the Crypto 6 case against me, where all 8 counts I was found guilty by a jury of my so-called peers today here in New Hampshire. It was pretty disappointing, but let's go back to your thoughts about it. We got Roach on the line here. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so one of the other things I wanted to bring up, and I wonder what your take is on this, is whatever maybe your attorney said, but what about the recent Supreme Court case, West Virginia versus the EPA? You know anything about that?
Yeah, that was actually, so I'm not enough of a legal scholar to really be able to explain it, but as I understand that case, basically the Supreme Court ruled that the EPA had overreached in its regulatory authority, so-called, and that it needed to be beaten back, and that government agencies are not allowed to regulate beyond the prescription of the federal the legislature or something like that. Is that how you understand it?
Yes, that's exactly how I understand it. Basically, they're calling shots that are resulting in doctrines that are being viewed as law when they are in fact not law.
No,
they are very, very sloppily adhered to the point where the spirit of the legislation, that the statute that backs them, isn't at all being followed. And this should affect all government agencies, not just the EPA. So that would go, this brings into question things like, is the FBI allowed to exist at all? Things like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
But probably more importantly is that if Congress doesn't claim that Bitcoin is money, if Congress doesn't make a law that says
they have not yet done that,
that's the case. Is if Congress doesn't define what Bitcoin is, then can regulatory bodies, who, by the way, define it differently. IRS calls it one thing, FinCEN calls it another, and the idea that somehow we're supposed to know how to handle it, on one hand, Ian, you're just too much of a criminal because you know too much law. On the other hand, if you don't know enough law, it's no excuse. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'd like to point out, Matt, that this issue was brought up actually in a motion early on, months before we actually went to trial. It was actually Ari's attorney who filed the motion, but my attorney joined it. So we've got the same motion, essentially. And it was bringing up that EPA case, made the arguments that this case absolutely applies here. And there was a certain term of like great questions sorts of cases. I don't know. That's not the exact word.
Question?
Yeah, like significant question, I think was what it was. And we tried to make the argument that this was one of those cases, and the federal legislature did not talk about Bitcoin in the money transmitter statutes, and the judge, of course, denied the motion. But the motion was made, and so therefore that should be an appealable point. I can't say for sure or not whether that will be included in our appeal, since I can't talk about that, but it is preserved for an appeal. It could be something that we go forward on, for sure.
One more case that I want to bring up that should apply to all agencies. This is one that, lands in my backyard because I'm such a gun dude, that I heard came up a whole bunch at the trial.
Oh, yeah.
For inexplicable reasons. That had nothing to do with you. But
Yes, you, before you go on, you who own guns legally, in New Hampshire, including having multiple federal permits that you've acquired over the years, which means that you have no criminal history, and they certainly knew who you were because they were eyeballing the house for months and checking license plates and things like that to identify the people who lived here and doing research upon them. They used you as the primary excuse for why it was they had to do a shock and awe Osama bin Laden style attack.
Well, they also mentioned an umbrella that I had.
An umbrella sword.
An umbrella sword, which is, this plastic movie prop. And this is the reason for body armor and tanks and drones and smashing everything.
Don't forget about the night vision and the helmets and the camo.
Yeah.
So, but one of the other cases I want to bring up was Bruin, the Bruin case. The Bruin case was a case about it was a gun-related case, and what the Supreme Court found was that the ATF isn't allowed to make regulations that are outside the scope of the text, history, and tradition found at the signing of the Constitution.
Okay, very interesting.
That is a huge.
Bitcoin didn't exist back then.
Right. So there you. But even if it was. Like, again, this goes right back to me talking about how, what if it was Beanie Babies or some collectible? Cryptos are collectibles. They are. That's what people do with them. They collect them. Hardly anybody ever spends them. But they're tradable, just like a Beanie Baby or a baseball card.
Well, I think their argument there would be that, that's different because in order to send Beanie Babies to someone, you would have to ship them to a physical address, and so therefore they'd be able to find the scam artist and bring them to justice. But because it was Bitcoin, which they both want you to believe is pseudonymous and also anonymous, which of course we know is not true.
They went back and forth saying that.
Yeah, because it's whatever suits them in the moment. But they say, well, Bitcoin's anonymous, and so that's why the scammers
They
use
also wanted to bring their expert in and talk about how they could track the Bitcoin.
Yeah, so that would be their argument there.
So it's not trackable, it's trackable all at the same time. They got a big mouth, don't they? Lots of stuff fits in it. But that said, I'll just part with this. A, we love you, and we support you, and this is insane, and beat it on appeal. For two, for everybody out there listening, let's remake the point of how absolutely petrified of Monero these people are. And let's drive that home now harder than ever. If you haven't figured out cryptocurrency yet, do it today. And if you need to go further than that, which you do, you need to get a Monero wallet of some kind and start looking into having some privacy in your pocket.
Good advice, Matt. Thank you for the call tonight. I appreciate it. We're going to continue here with Alu calling us from the Liberty Block. Alu, welcome.
Hi, guys. I was only at the trial for the closing arguments. Unfortunately, was not able to make it for any of the actual testimony and stuff. But from what I saw, the prosecution did not have a strong case at all. It was rather weak. And I was surprised because I was feeling pretty optimistic. I'm pretty surprised that the jury still convicted on all counts.
Yeah.
I think that the interesting points I want to make is that a few others have mentioned already, Bonnie and Matt and the others, that Bitcoin is money and currency and investment and asset and stock and this and that and commodity, and it's whatever it is, whatever suits them, whatever suits whatever agency, IRS or SEC. And again, they can do whatever they want. They can say that a banana is money, and you can't argue, you can't punish them. They have all the power. We are but their powerless serfs, and we must bow down and obey. So that's an interesting point. The other one was privacy, and I think I turned to Bonnie and Nikki at a point the other day, and I said, because they were making up privacy to be a inherently bad thing. How dare you on privacy? And I said, Bonnie, do you have a curtain on your windows? Do you lock the bathroom door when you go to the bathroom and shower? Why do you do it? What are you hiding? You must be a criminal. And she said, nope, that's actually pretty normal. I don't want the whole world seeing my body. And that's a privacy thing. It's not about crime. I don't have a crime, committing inside, but I have curtains because I like privacy. And that's my goddamn right. So that's, I think that's a great point. I hope 50 made it at some point during the trial. But it was sad to see that the prosecution was essentially insinuating that anyone who wants privacy must be up to no good.
Well, Ian did say at one point, very poignantly, privacy matters.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't hammer home a lot about privacy on the trial, but honestly, I don't feel like it would have made any difference on this jury. I mean, they were just...
Well, not on the jury. It's just appealable issues, right?
Well, that won't matter to the judges either. They don't care about that. So they're going to only turn this over on law
They've ruled
points.
that there's a right to privacy in the Constitution.
Well, good luck with that. Alu, did you have more to share?
During your appearance, I just want to say, like, is there...
Hang on, dude. Hold that thought. We'll continue here in moments. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Unfortunately, we are moving into a society in which privacy is going to be harder and harder to attain, especially with all of this anti-privacy rhetoric going on. They're trying to make privacy look like something only for bad guys. It's ridiculous. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Generic or name brand? I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. On a radio interview, I suggested comparing the ingredients in generic over-the-counter meds with name brand pills. And we got a call from a pharmacist who said that some generics might not work as well as name brand pills because of inactive ingredients you won't see listed on the packages. For seasonal hay fever, I myself came back to Sudafed after the store brand with the same active ingredient wasn't as effective. Dr. Roy Blackburn was listening, and he writes, the meds which are probably most important not to buy generically are cardiac meds and thyroid meds. Otherwise, it is worth a try to use generics. Thanks, Doc. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Bring up whatever is on your mind. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Mark.
And don't forget, you can join us online anytime. Just head over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features we have waiting for you there. Once again, freetalklive.com. We're going back to your phone calls and thoughts. Alu Axelman is with us here from the Liberty Block. Alu, you attended a little bit of the hearings and you wanted to kind of reflect or share your thoughts, so I know you had more to say. Please continue.
Yeah, the other big thing I was going to say is the jury of the peers thing. I found kind of interesting. Always, it's in the Constitution, but can you ever really have a jury of your peers? Obviously, every person is unique, which us voluntarists understand that concept, I think, maybe more than some other normal or status people. And for instance, I would say more so than a New Hampshire citizen, which is the only way they define it, I would say your peers would be voluntarists, peaceful people,
sure,
crypto people, people who are into privacy, like that. That would be the most important cohort of your peers. And again, it's hard for people to understand how you and I don't really think we're Americans and we're faithful servants to the American and New Hampshire governments, and that was what defines us. That's what defines us most. So our peers are just anyone who's from New Hampshire.
I've struggled with this. Who is your peer? Because in this case, it's somebody from New Hampshire, somebody living in New Hampshire.
Anyone all over New Hampshire, probably lives in towns we've never been to, some of them. It's like
somebody registered to vote and or having a driver's license, state ID. That's what they pick them from what I understand.
And, but, it's not, I don't know what peer means precisely, but that's what they're defining it as. But I think that probably to me, the first most important issue is, why is it that the prosecution gets to kick out jurors? I can see why that would be the case for a defendant. Defendant should have, there's all kinds of things that are stacked against the defendant. For instance, and I think that most importantly, the defendant has to pay for their defense, whereas the prosecution uses your tax money to do what they do.
They get paid to put on the prosecution.
There were 6 bureaucrats sitting on the one side, and there was Sisti and then his assistant and Ian on the other.
That's right.
He was at the very least outnumbered
2 to 1.
2 to 1.
Yep.
But Ian wasn't really one of these people doing it, so call it 3 to 1.
Yeah.
And since his assistant isn't a lawyer, maybe it's 6 to 1. Whatever the case may be, it doesn't really matter how you slice it. But clearly, it was outnumbered. Why is it that they get to spend all that money? This was probably
a lot of money.
Certainly millions of dollars.
Just the investigation.
The investigation was millions of dollars.
And who paid to fly in all those old people from around the country?
Taxpayers did.
Yep, very much so.
But I paid for them to fly here
and
just to try to screw you.
Yes, that's right.
And ultimately, that's what occurred. But it seems like the jury should be, the prosecution should be stuck with their citizenry. They shouldn't be able to kick anybody out. I can see why the defense can say, not this one, not that one. We don't want people who are related to cops or whatever the situation might be. But, that doesn't need to be fair. And then, of course, the very fair 2 closing statements for the prosecution, 1 closing state for the defendant.
Totally fair.
And they get the last.
Last word.
Anytime you're in an argument with someone, the last word is important.
Yep, sure is. Yeah, the whole deck is stacked, and as you guys pointed out, that's if you can afford the bail, right? Like if you can't be outside of a jail cell to prepare your case, you have no chance.
No chance.
And what about people who literally just can't afford to take 2 to 3 weeks or however long the jury and judge want off of work and just be at that courthouse?
Right.
And eat out all the time?
Yeah, we paid a lot of money for lunches just to be at this place. But Alu, anything else you want to share?
Not that much. I'm hopefully, something goes well. Obviously, let us know whatever all of us who love liberty and peace and love you could do to help with the sentencing. If we could, help to convince the judge at the last second, in that last opportunity that you are not the evil, manipulative liar, scammer they made you out to be. Whatever we can do to help, just let us know.
Thank you, Alu. I appreciate it.
Worst comes to worst, if you're in a federal custody once we do secede very soon. We'll negotiate something. Maybe we'll send even a WNBA star to trade for you.
That's very kind. Thank you for the call tonight.
Let's not falsely imprison WNBA or anybody else in order to trade for Ian, okay?
Check him out. His blog is libertyblock.com, by the way. Let's go to Andrew in New Hampshire. Andrew, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
I just want to thank you, Ian, for being such a powerful force against one of the most corrosive forces I see in our society, which is taboos. And I think so much of the political elite power structure depends on these taboos that they just have to attack vehemently. Anyone who's kind of a warrior against taboos, anyone who's truly into free speech and freedom, I think the way they enslave us is by introducing taboos and then
you're so right. One of the items that the prosecution used to go against Ian was they showed a picture of someone who ended up being a scammer, but Ian sold Bitcoin to him, and he thought that he was selling it to this man through a third party, and it turned out to be a scam. And, Ian eventually found out it was a scam maybe through this case, but they showed a picture of him, and he was a African man in Nigeria, and he happened to not be wearing a shirt, and he was obviously in his own home, and Ian had instructed him to take a picture of himself with his ID, and the prosecution showed that picture and said, does this man, because he had claimed to Ian that he had a business, and he said, does this man look like the CEO of a company?
This black man?
Like that. They didn't say this black man, but that was what else they said. Did this shirtless man look like he's a CEO of a company? Yeah, I don't know. They were just trying to say black people who don't wear shirts.
African people can't run countries, or I don't know what he was saying exactly. That
it was
CEO,
crazy.
Obviously, a CEO would put on a shirt for this picture. I don't know what they were saying, but it sounded a lot like this African man couldn't possibly run anything but a scam.
Right.
Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, just the idea that something is unfashionable or you shouldn't go there, shouldn't say that. It's it can start off as kind of mild political correctness. I think the first person to really get banned from Twitter, high profile, was Milo for criticizing the Ghostbusters movie or something, and then pretty soon it's you can't criticize the vaccine. You got to take the vaccine.
Yeah. You can't post about Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah,
true story. Can't post about it.
Steal elections, push vaccines, and it all starts, by gently introducing taboos and kind of cracking them over time. And I think one of the reasons you've attracted so much, not just this case but others, so much of the wrath of the state, Ian, is that you're a loud voice who speaks his mind, is willing to open up the conversation, and doesn't care about taboos. And that's just...
Well, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate the kind words, and thanks for the call tonight.
Ian doesn't care about the taboo against having a couch on your lawn.
Let's continue here.
Some taboos are good things to be taboos, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't talk about it and discuss why.
Let's go to Joe in Maryland. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, hi, Ian. Hi, Bon.
Hey, what's on your mind?
Your jury was tainted because it's supposed to be a jury of your peers. Your peers are people like George Washington, Nathan Hale, Alexander Hamilton, Patrick Henry. Those are your peers.
Well, I don't know if I'll take Alexander Hamilton. Wasn't he like a big bank guy?
He was the central bank guy.
Yeah, he was a big central bank guy, but I get the intention of what you're saying. You're talking about founding fathers is sort of
Alexander Hamilton was libertarian by the standard of politicians that are in office today.
Go ahead, Joe.
Killed. Yeah, like Nathan Hale, the first person who was hung by the British.
Yep.
So, like, you're a sacrificial lamb for Bitcoin. It's unfair. What they're saying is, if
Uh-oh.
We lost you.
We lost you, Joe. I think you had a bad sell. You said what they're saying is what?
Words of Joseph Goebbels for Germany, who said, if you have nothing to fear, you should let us know everything. And then after all your information was given, you were taken to concentration camps. It's horrible.
Yep. Well, what's old is new again. That is for sure. And thank you, Joe, for your call and thoughts tonight.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ian. Those people are garbage.
Thank you, man. I appreciate hearing from you. The number is 603-283-6160. We got a whole hour of this show to go, plus more from Ron Paul on the way here as he's talking about the crisis, what he's describing as the mother of all economic crisis. It's not a long article, by the way. It's just we've been struggling to get through it here, and I think it's still worth getting to. So I do want to continue that coming up here. He's talking about the interest rates, the Federal Reserve, the inflation, something that was brought up during this trial that everyone's been calling about tonight. Again, thank you to everybody for the kind words. I definitely appreciate it. And again, this whole thing ain't over yet. There's still an appeal to go here, and we'll tell you more about that when the case gets filed, I guess. There's more on the way here. This is Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is on the way.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Gold and silver. You can own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their silver starter kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products plus a free gold bag. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. The World Health Organization says China's hospitals appear to be filling up as a latest surge of COVID-19 gathers pace. Beijing insists no one died of COVID on Wednesday, and patients in intensive care remain relatively low. The WHO, though, says it's very concerned about the situation after China moved away from its strict zero COVID stance. UK Health Secretary Steve Barclay reportedly wants to fast-track a pay rise for NHS workers to try and head off further strike action. Nurses and ambulance workers are among those who've taken industrial action over pay in recent days. On Friday, strikes by Border Force workers will begin. Travel editor of The Sun newspaper, Lisa Minot, says they could have a major impact.
Bosses are saying they could actually be forced to close airports. There's 7 million people due to travel over the festive period, and I think the second round of strike action between the 28th and the 31st could be the real pinch point, as a lot of people will be returning back to the UK from after a Christmas break, could actually see that there is going to be serious delays.
Japan's approving a new regulation allowing nuclear plants to operate even longer than the previous 60 years. Japan's government's pushing for continued use of older reactors in a bid to meet its carbon reduction goals for 2030. Nora Weineck reports from Tokyo.
This change could allow Japan to restart many of its aging nuclear power plants, which have been offline since the triple reactor meltdown at the Fukushima No. 1 power plant in 2011. The decision comes just a day before the government is set to decide on a new energy policy, which is expected to emphasize the usage of nuclear power plants. However, realizing this plan may still take some time, as legislation is needed to implement the change, and the opposition is expected to strongly oppose the move. The announcement comes just after a local appeal to stop operations at a 46-year-old reactor in central Japan was rejected by a district court. Japan's government aims to raise the share of energy provided by nuclear power plants from 6.9% to over 20% by 2030. Nora Weinig, Tokyo.
Football Australia has issued more bans over the violent pitch invasion during an A-League match played in Melbourne. 8 more fans have been banned from attending Football Australia sanctioned matches and registering as a football participant. Sean Bindley reports.
Those punished are aged between 18 and 28 years old, with the ban spanning 5 to 25 years for a variety of violations. Earlier this week, lifetime bans were handed to 2 men over the pitch invasion during the Melbourne derby between City and Victory. It's also been revealed 4 people on banned lists were prevented from entering the stadium to watch the match last Saturday night. Football Australia continues to work with Victoria Police to identify others involved. So far, 13 alleged offenders have been charged.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more today on the German perspective of the situation in Ukraine after President Biden announced another $2 billion in military assistance for Kiev during President Volodymyr Zelensky's Wednesday visit to Washington. The German government is among those in Europe holding out the possibility of a negotiated settlement between Russia and Ukraine and argues that it's important to keep channels of communication open with Vladimir Putin, despite US claims that he's a war criminal.
We need to be patient. We need to give Ukraine the necessary time and make sure that the West stays united and supplies Ukraine with what is needed.
Miguel Berger is the German ambassador to Britain and says with Russia preparing for a spring offensive in Ukraine, the world may have to wait for negotiations to occur.
The Ukrainians know that this is going to come once the winter is over. And what we have to do is really to supply them with the maximum amount of support we can give to them. If at a certain stage it's necessary to sit down and talk with the Russians, yes, I have no doubt about it. But the crucial question is, has Putin understood that his imperialistic view, that he can occupy a country, that he will fail with that? And so far the Russians have not understood the lesson.
Only if they do, he says, can negotiations ever begin with Moscow. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
To recap the top stories, the WHO says China's hospitals appear to be filling up as COVID-19 surges. The UK's Health Secretary reportedly wants to fast-track a pay rise for NHS workers to head off further strikes. Japan's approving new rules to allow nuclear plants to operate longer than the previous 60 years. And Football Australia's issued more bans over the violent pitch invasion during an A-League match. That's the latest feature story news. Ollie Barrett reporting.
Every 44 seconds, someone in the United States suffers a heart attack. In 9 out of 10 instances, the heart attack victim will fail to theatrically stumble to the ground and grasp their chest. Don't be a statistic. A heart attack occurs when oxygenated blood is obstructed from flowing properly to the heart muscle and requires victims to act quickly by lurching around with one hand clutching their chest and the other hand reaching out for drapes, blinds, or tablecloths to violently yank out. The first 30 seconds of a heart attack is a critical window. If standing at the time of an attack, move into what is known as the L position by doubling over and grimacing in an unnaturally strained fashion. Use one outstretched hand to grasp for support as you stumble forward, while using the other trembling arm to sweep everything off a table.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Mark.
And you can join us online. Just head over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features we have there on the website. Well, we've been trying to do this Ron Paul story. I'm hoping we can finish it tonight. We've been working on it all week because a lot of people understandably want to talk about the Crypto 6 case.
And I want to talk to TJ.
And TJ is on the line. We're going to bring him in here in just a moment. That's been the bulk of the calls here tonight. In fact, I think 100% of them. Thank you to everybody for your support, even though ultimately the jury sadly made the decision to find me guilty of all 8 completely nonviolent counts wherein there was no victim identified except for the supposed banks, and then the banks were had zero restitution owed to them, and all of the other guilty pleas in this case. So, I mean, the whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous, and we are going to be appealing this because I did not take a plea deal, which means we can appeal this particular case, and we have our reasons. We can't talk about those publicly at this point, but it should be interesting once we are able to do so. Meanwhile, we go to TJ the Spy on the line in Colorado. Go ahead, TJ.
Greetings, Bonnie, Mark, and Ian.
Hello.
I just wanted to say I'm sorry to hear about it, and I was kind of bummed at work when I heard the verdict. But, I want to write a sentencing letter to Judge LaPlante. Do I hand that to Mark Sisti, your attorney? Should I give it to you? Is there a court address I send it to?
We haven't gotten that far yet, but a couple people have mentioned that they want to do that, and I think it'd be really nice. Just get anyone that wants to at all, to write a good letter, and I don't know who we'll get it to, but we'll figure that out.
I suspect it'll be Sisti, my attorney, but yeah, I'm sure we will figure that out in the coming
There's
months.
no way to just write directly to the judge, so
Okay.
it would have to be Sisti probably.
Okay. Well, what's going to happen to I was calling because I was wondering about the future of Free Talk Live because, come April when the sentencing people come around, who's going to, is Free Talk Live going to continue on in a new shape or form, or is Mark going to take the reins and assassinate you to inherit everything that Bitcoin, the Sire Free Church owns? I don't
Apparently,
know.
I don't have to assassinate him.
It's an excellent question, TJ. We've got some talented people behind the scenes here at Free Talk Live, and if the worst case happens and they take me into a prison cell, which is obviously what they intend to do, it's ultimately going to be up to the judge and whether or not we're able to appeal and whether or not I'm able to stay out upon appeal. So there's still some questions in the air, but obviously it's not looking particularly good at this point.
So things look significantly different tonight than they did last night. Now, last night, I believed that Ian was going to be found not guilty of 6 of the 8 charges, maybe 7 of the 8 charges. That was what my sort of belief and my take on it was. Tonight, we know that Ian's going to be found guilty of all 8.
Yep.
So, and that there's a possibility of Ian going to prison for quite some time. And we have to figure out what we're going to do with Free Talk Live in that time frame. I certainly would be willing to listen to any listeners that had any ideas about how to handle all of this, but it remains up in the air. I think we know more now than we did before, and we have to figure out what's going to happen.
Well, I'm certainly willing to move back to Keene and go in with a camera and pay your property tax in $1 bills and say, think of how much you have to steal from people to pay for your worthless jobs, your worthless government jobs.
Are you really going to move back to Keene and James?
He's teasing.
I'm teasing. Well, my life is with James, and James, he likes to visit. He might visit, but he's never going to move back.
Well, never say never.
Never say never, but he's made it adamantly clear that he wants to move on with something else. And
well,
so
I think that it's
okay.
This is instructive to some extent, Ian, right? Like, to some extent, it's the move to New Hampshire, get active for liberty, and play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? Like, that's why we're here right now. That's why we've got the situation we've got. And I wouldn't be trying to recruit anybody for the Free State Project today, Tour IU. Right?
Why not?
Like, well, because you are the reason why I wouldn't move to the Free State Project right now.
What do I have to do with the Free State Project? I'm not even a member of it.
I think this is the exact time to stay strong, is when stuff like this happens, because that's what they want. They want
to
everyone
break this
to
movement apart. That's what they've been trying to do for 2 decades.
They want everyone to stay, doing what they're doing and just continuing on with their silly, stupid jobs and silly, stupid lives that really mean nothing. Oh, I bought this purse. I finally did something in my life. No, you didn't. You did nothing in your life because you're a slave. They want people to continue living their slave lives and fear is part of that. Like, so they want people to be afraid of doing anything different. They
want people to be
the
afraid of
taboos.
Bitcoin. They want people to be afraid of making a new cryptocurrency. That's why the SEC is suing places like Library, LBRY.com. They're trying to bankrupt them. They're trying to more than bankrupt Library, by the way. There's some updates in that case, which are pretty ridiculous. They're now suing the FTX token, the FTT, I think is what it's called, saying that's a security as well. So they're basically just going after every potential crypto business in the United States.
The FTT was probably used as a security, best we can tell. We haven't seen
The thing
all
is,
the
they're
evidence
using the Library case to justify going after absolutely every cryptocurrency except for Bitcoin at this point.
That battle is lost.
They want people to be afraid. They want people to be afraid of joining the Free State Project. They want them to not come here because they think that the feds are targeting people, and the feds are targeting people. That's absolutely true. And if you thought you were going to be able to be a libertarian activist who actually made an impact without getting their attention, you need to think again.
Well, I think that
I totally agree, and that's why I said I was happy with the first FBI raid. Partly because I was on MDMA and LSD when it happened. And if you want to see that, you can head over to my channel at TJ the Spy and on YouTube and watch the video of the first raid where I parade around naked saying I want my attorney and I have nothing to say. And those were some good times.
Yeah.
But,
hey, look, I don't blame you or James for wanting to retire from activism and take it easy. I mean, there's no obligation for people to continue for their whole lives. There's no doubt about that. But generally, I do think Bonnie's absolutely right that people who love liberty need to do more than just be tweeting. And they need to get up and physically move together. Now, whether that's moving to Mark's Honduras paradise or whether it's moving to New Hampshire, you got to have a community around you that has a like mind. I think that's one of the most important things.
Well, I think that's the best thing, right? Like to have people, to have your friends, to live near your friends and be near your family and things like that.
Secretly, I will tell you, James enjoyed. He said that's the one thing he misses about New Hampshire. Out here in Denver, it's kind of lonely because there's like 5 libertarians in Denver County.
Wow.
And
sad.
we all, meet, we meet once a month and complain about the government. But it's not anything like, the whole fabric and community where you of New Hampshire and Keene and all this crypto stuff, crypto accepting businesses. And, well,
nothing like it here. There's no doubt.
Yes, well, I'll be praying for you and Bonnie, and just remember, no jail cell can ever stop the two of you from loving each other.
Thank you, TJ, for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. The number is 603-283-6160. So we were reading a story here by Ron Paul. It's about the what he's calling the mother of all economic crises, and he points out that the Federal Reserve, he says, even though the rates are high, meaning that prices are going, like from our perspective, prices of mortgages, for instance, have been going up. It's been making home buyers disinterested, or potential home buyers disinterested in getting a mortgage. So we've already been seeing that over the last several months this year. But that's not. He says that's not the end of it because the interest rates are actually what he says are still historic lows. He says that the reason the Fed cannot raise rates anywhere near what they would be in a free market is the effect it would have on the federal government's ability to manage its debt.
Yes.
According to the Congressional Budget Office, interest on the national debt is already on track to consume 40% of the federal budget by 2052 and will surpass defense spending by 2029. So interest on the national debt will be bigger than defense spending. That is isn't that the biggest chunk of the federal government's budget?
Right. It's about half of the discretionary budget.
Yeah.
There's things like Medicare and Social Security aren't considered discretionary.
He says when a small interest rate increase happens, it can raise the yearly federal debt interest rate payments by many billions of dollars, which of course taxpayers are on the hook for. We'll talk more about what that means coming up. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before PorcFest. ForkFest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. forkfest.party.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Is Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Tonight it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Mark.
And you can join us online. Just head over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features that we have for you there. Also, if you've got students, you've got kids in government high school or any government school, you probably should get them out.
Students is probably a legal term, I bet.
Yeah. I meant your kids, right? So if they're in a government school, you know it's a failed institution, right? You know that 1 out of 5 graduates are functionally illiterate, 75% of high school students unhappy, 63% are disengaged, and according to the CDC, a full 19% of them are considering suicide. And now you can put an end to this and get your kid a possibly the same elite education found at Oxford for an affordable price. Michael Strong is a highly acclaimed and globally known educator. He launched an online academy called the Socratic Experience, where students learn through philosophical dialogue and are engaged in a highly social and inspiring learning environment. The Socratic Experience nurtures your child's unique genius, and it's a proven school. Their students have gotten into the most prestigious universities and highly selective companies. you can get 20% off your first year's tuition by going to socraticexperience.com/FTL and download the parent guide there and save that 20% at socraticexperience.com/FTL. Class space is limited. It's socraticexperience.com/FTL.
And I can't think of a better choice. I mean, as far as getting a great education online, homeschooling, for the people that really can't do homeschooling themselves, you're like, well, homeschooling's fine when you're talking about somebody who's kindergarten through 6th grade. I know that kind of math and that kind of English, but beyond that, I don't think I can do it. Well, now you can with the Socratic Experience, because your kid will be put in with the very best teachers at the very best class sizes with the very best students to learn the sort of things that they want to learn. And, the most important thing you can get out of high school, in my opinion, is critical thinking.
Is this only high school age?
I don't know exactly the ages, but I can tell you Jack is going into high school,
and he's getting started in the Socratic Experience.
He's getting started.
And the quality of the other students is important, because it's just like, you're not going to do as well if everybody else around you is just like, oh, I hate learning and I want to be a criminal.
Yeah, the people who you surround yourself with will bring you up or
like
bring you down.
School.
That is absolutely true.
Yeah, as I recall, it was like 3rd grade or something on up.
Okay.
So it's a younger.
It's pretty inclusive then.
Yeah, it's pretty inclusive.
So Ron Paul talking about interest rates, and you've heard the news, and I got to say, I learned something from this story for sure, because I've heard the news about the interest rates going up. The Federal Reserve is raising them. It seems like just about every month they have a meeting. I don't think it's quite every month, but roughly. Sometimes they take a month off, but roughly every month they have a meeting, and they've been raising the rates all year long, and it's like record amounts of rate raising. And the news media will say, if you look at enough stories about it, they'll point out that this means that not as many people are going to get home mortgages, or somebody might not get a business loan or something like that because the rates are too high, and they're like, you know what, I don't need to start this business now, or I don't need to buy this home.
They may not choose to get the loan, but the loans are still floating around out there. Believe me, many companies would love to give you an 8% loan.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But again, the price going up of these loans is going to dissuade people from getting them, and that's sort of the supposed intention here. But the thing they haven't reported on that I learned from Ron Paul is that also when they raise these interest rates, the federal government has to pay more interest on the money that they've borrowed from the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, it's an important distinction, right?
Apparently, the federal government has themselves an adjustable rate loan with the Federal Reserve, so the more the Federal Reserve ups the rates, the more the taxpayers are on the hook for paying that extra increase.
So is that happening right now?
It's happening, right? Every time they raise the rates, taxpayers have to pay more. And so he points out here that the federal government's fiscal picture is made worse by the fact that the Social Security so-called trust fund will begin to run deficits by 2035. While the Medicare Trust Fund will run deficits by 2028. I mean, that's 5 years away.
By the way, there's been solutions to this that have been proffered to the American people and to the representatives for years. Mm-hmm. Rand Paul and Ron Paul both had solutions that were offered as far as the budget goes. But somehow, ladies and gentlemen, the solution at one point was every government bureaucrat out there had to cut 1 penny from their program.
No can do.
Right. They just couldn't cut 1 penny. Somehow, they could not make it on the cost from last year less 1%.
1%, yeah.
Yeah.
1 penny per dollar.
Then it's gone up to three pennies. Now it's 6 is the proposal if you want to see things wound back.
They're not going to do it.
And they're not going to.
They're just going to print their way, they think, out of this problem.
Right. Modern monetary theory is self-destructive.
Yeah, well,
sorry,
it's the people that are going to have to pay the price for this, not the politicians.
They've been letting it go on.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah. I left America a couple of years ago, and y'all can deal with it. I'm not going to live in a country where y'all just sit around and say, okay, politicians, just go ahead and spend. It's your problem, not mine. I left.
Well, people who use Bitcoin aren't just sitting around saying, okay, politicians, go ahead and spend. They are trying to fix the problem.
Well, but the majority of people are just sitting back.
I know, but he's saying y'all as in us.
Bitcoin users have stepped out of the monetary system, but you stay here. I mean, to some extent, you're supporting them.
The looming bankruptcies.
Your money, your gas tax goes to their DOT. Your cell phone tax goes to their Washington, D.C. The taxes you pay, whether you like it or not, they're going there. The only way to get out of the system is to get out of the system. You like America? Well, pay for it and be happy about it.
The looming bankruptcy of the two major entitlement programs, again, welfare, or rather Social Security and Medicare, combined with the unwillingness of most in Congress to reduce either welfare or warfare spending, puts the Fed in a bind. If it raises rates to the levels needed to really combat price inflation, the increase in the interest payments will impose hardships on individuals and businesses, as well as raise federal interest payments to unsustainable levels. This will cause a major economic crisis, including a government default on its debt, causing a rejection of the dollar's world reserve currency status.
Well, I don't think that the government will default on its debt because it can print its way out.
That'd be even worse, of course, if that happens. But
and remember this, ladies and gentlemen, the United States government may not control the Federal Reserve, which is what Ron Paul is talking about here, but it does control the mint.
It's true. They can mint themselves $1 trillion coin.
They can They can go make use the penny press, and instead of putting 1 penny on there, they can put 1 trillion on there.
But that's still not any real way out, because it basically means that they would lose any kind of world reserve status there anyway, because everybody would know that now the U.S. government's going to just print out $1 trillion coins to pay its debts. So.
Well, the other thing about being
you're going to loan them money if they're just going to print $1 trillion coin out.
The thing that you need to be the world reserve currency is you don't. It's like running from a bear. You don't have to be able to outrun a bear. You have to be able to outrun the slowest person in the group. And that's why you bring a .22 to shoot him in the knee.
Oh my God.
When the United States is compared to the euro, the Canadian dollar, the Australian dollar, the ruble, the yuan, and all the other currencies out there, it beats them because their governments are even more irresponsible.
For now. The number is 603-283-6160, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be economic ruin coming here as well, just because the rest of the places
can't outrun it.
On the planet are worse.
Now's the time to fix your spending problem, ladies and gentlemen.
There's more on the way here. You can share your thoughts with us. It is Free Talk Live. We got a little more Ron Paul coming up.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in London, I'm Ollie Barrett. The World Health Organization says China's hospitals appear to be filling up as a latest surge of COVID-19 gathers pace. Beijing insists no one died of COVID on Wednesday, and patients in intensive care remain relatively low. The WHO, though, says it's very concerned about the situation after China moved away from its strict zero COVID stance. UK Health Secretary Steve Barclay reportedly wants to fast-track a pay rise for NHS workers to try and head off further strike action. Nurses and ambulance workers are among those who've taken industrial action over pay in recent days. On Friday, strikes by Border Force workers will begin. Travel editor of The Sun newspaper, Lisa Minot, says they could have a major impact.
Bosses are saying they could actually be forced to close airports. There's 7 million people due to travel over the festive period, and I think the second round of strike action between the 28th and the 31st could be the real pinch point, as a lot of people will be returning back to the UK from after a Christmas break, could actually see that there is going to be serious delays.
Japan's approving a new regulation allowing nuclear plants to operate even longer than the previous 60 years. Japan's government's pushing for continued use of older reactors in a bid to meet its carbon reduction goals for 2030. Nora Weineck reports from Tokyo.
This change could allow Japan to restart many of its aging nuclear power plants, which have been offline since the triple reactor meltdown at the Fukushima No. 1 power plant in 2011. The decision comes just a day before the government is set to decide on a new energy policy, which is expected to emphasize the usage of nuclear power plants. However, realizing this plan may still take some time, as legislation is needed to implement the change, and the opposition is expected to strongly oppose the move. The announcement comes just after a local appeal to stop operations at a 46-year-old reactor in central Japan was rejected by a district court. Japan's government aims to raise the share of energy provided by nuclear power plants from 6.9% to over 20% by 2030. Nora Weineck, Tokyo.
Football Australia's issued more bans over the violent pitch invasion during an A-League match played in Melbourne. 8 more fans have been banned from attending Football Australia sanctioned matches and registering as a football participant. Sean Bindley reports.
Those punished are aged between 18 and 28 years old, with the ban spanning 5 to 25 years for a variety of violations. Earlier this week, lifetime bans were handed to 2 men over the pitch invasion during the Melbourne derby between City and Victory. It's also been revealed 4 people on banned lists were prevented from entering the stadium to watch the match last Saturday night. Football Australia continues to work with Victoria Police to identify others involved. So far, 13 alleged offenders have been charged.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. Got a little bit more from Ron Paul coming up here on what he's describing as the mother of all economic crises. With you in the studio tonight, it is Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Mark.
Join us online anytime over at freetalklive.com. Features are free, and you can enjoy those. Once again, that is freetalklive.com. We're going to go back into your calls and thoughts here, and then a little bit more from Ron Paul. First, we have Mark calling us, listening to WNDB in Florida. Mark, you're on Free Talk Live there in Daytona Beach.
Hey, thank you. I'm sort of like a dinosaur. I don't do internet. I don't do email. I hate texting. I'm not going to do $5 a month out of a credit card. But I'd love to send you some money because I listen to you guys. You make sense, you know?
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Garbage all the time. And I'm sorry to hear what happened to you. That just, it sucks, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really does. And I really appreciate the generosity. And when you called in, you told me that. I gave you our mailing address. And
you need to give it to everybody else. Put it out over the air.
Yeah.
People can send you a check. There's a lot of us people that would love to help, but we're not going to we're not going to do the internet. We're not going to, do a credit card. But hey, we'll drop you $120 a year or whatever.
Well, thank you. I definitely do appreciate that. I think the reason we don't do that on the air is just because it takes a long time to give an address out. It's like not the most interesting.
And people don't have pens ready and a variety of things.
Yeah, people are driving or whatever.
Tell people, hey, get a pen ready. We're going to give you an address.
Well,
if you really want, if other people, I was gonna say, I really want to, they could call in or email at ian@freetalklive.com.
Yeah, that's another option as well.
Don't do email.
Right. That's why you picked up the phone.
Don't do text.
You picked up the phone. You called in. Look, I appreciate the. Let me just say this, Mark. I appreciate you reaching out, and it's not about money, right? Like, it's a nice gesture. I'm not going to turn it down, right? Like, you want to send a check, please go right ahead. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Fees. You're going to have costs, man. You guys,
Yep. Well, we definitely have legal fees, and the good news is the Shire Free Church is able to cover those legal fees, at least at this point. So that's the good news. So, but if, like I said, I'm not going to turn it down. I don't want to be rude or anything like that. By all means, if you feel like you're called to send a check to us, just give us a call on the call-in lines. We give them out every segment, and you can call during the break, and we'll take your. You don't have to be on the air. You can we'll give you the info, and I really appreciate it. Mark, was there anything else you wanted to share tonight?
I'm sort of aggravated about that Relief Factor advertisement they have on the radio before you guys. They say it's drug-free, and I called to order it. And I found out what was in it. It's got Risperdal in it.
I have no idea what that is.
Risperdal.
I've never heard of it.
Growing breasts from being on Risperdal.
Well, it sounds like you're doing what you should do as a buyer or potential buyer is doing your due diligence and doing research.
I was going to order, and I asked what's in it, and the lady told me it's Risperdal. I said, how much? She said 200 milligrams. My kid took 20 milligrams a day for 2.5 years, and it started growing breasts.
Wow.
And the doctor looked at him and said, oh, that's gynecomastia. That's from the Risperdal. We got to take him off of that.
And I'm not familiar with
200 milligrams in that thing. And she said, yeah, you're supposed to take 3 a day. I'm like, that's 600 milligrams a day. What caused 20 milligrams caused him to grow
This is what people need to do. When you hear
stuff?
claims on wherever it is, television, radio, the internet, you got to do your own research. You got to learn about this stuff, and it sounds like you're doing that, Mark, and I appreciate it. That's,
man.
by the way, for the
Reference,
reference,
station I'm listening to.
for reference, that is not our advertiser. We don't know who those people are, and sometimes when we're on the air on a local radio station, ads get played, and we don't know what they are. It's just kind of the way the business is. Just if it's not our voice
We're not
on the
selling
ad,
Risperdal.
yeah, if it's not on our not our voice, there's a good chance we don't know anything about it. So thank you for the call, Mark.
Some guy promoted some Dr. Gorka, some CIA guy.
No, I've heard of that guy. He's like a right wing.
No, I'm not buying that stuff. No way.
The only thing I know about the Dr. Gorka guy is he's like a right wing talk show host who was accepting an award one year at the Talkers New Media seminar that Mark, you and I have attended many times.
Were you guys there?
Yeah, and he just kept on talking. He just didn't stop talking on the stage. Like, you're given a certain amount of minutes, right? Like, okay, you got 3 minutes, doctor. And he just kept on going. They literally had to drag him sort of.
Cane.
And thank you very much,
cane
doctor.
out, exactly. Hey, thanks, Mark, for the call tonight. I
He
appreciate
has a great voice, and I love his accent.
I appreciate your generosity, and I appreciate your thoughts.
Good luck, man. You'll be getting one a year.
Thank you, Mark.
Go good for you, man.
Thank you.
I wish you the best.
I appreciate it. Well, he can only go up from here at this point. I do appreciate it.
Not true, but let's hope so.
Let's talk to David in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, just bitching. Thanks for asking. And I can't stand Sebastian Gorka, Mark. Drives me.
I like the sound of him.
insane. I hate the sound of him.
I've never heard of him till now.
Go ahead. What's on your mind tonight?
Bunch of stuff regarding your trial, but first of all, let me interject that what's wrong with America is that Americans have not listened to the operating instructions that were provided when the country was handed over to them. That's the problem with America.
Sounds right.
So
Well, they think they can sit back and trust it to politicians, apparently, and if it's not working out, they can just vote their way out of the problem.
I mean, it was warned about that this could happen if people. It was warned about that this could happen if people didn't want to keep it the way that they set it up, and that it was going to be work.
Right, and the good news is, since people did not heed those instructions, the one thing that you do have control of is you still can legally exercise your Second Amendment rights, and when the country finally does collapse, there will be a war, and there will be sufficient persons that did follow the advice of the Second Amendment to then, at the point of collapse, to take the country back. And so that is the good news.
I don't think it's coming back. I don't think the country, quote unquote, is going to be coming back once it collapses.
Well, that's your best hope. Those founding documents are the most powerful thing that ever existed.
Well, they didn't work very well. Thank you for the call tonight, David, for being so powerful. I mean, they've ended up.
They worked to some extent. I mean, the United States is the most powerful economy on the planet, has been for decades.
It's also got the most powerful military that's dominating the rest of the planet and destroying all kinds of innocent life.
Right now, I think the thing that's good about that, not good, I'm not happy about it, but it's like, most of my life, and you guys' lives, they've been focused on, being tyrants all over the world, so they haven't really been focusing on us. And now it's like their sights are set towards their own citizens a lot more, and it's been that way slowly creeping in more and more since 2001. And
especially since 2020 as well. They
since
really
2001
it up
then really cranked up at 2020. And so yeah, I think that's. I mean, the Constitution's not going to stop it.
And they're going to be impoverishing people, which is what Ron Paul's pointing out here in his story at ronpaulinstitute.org, talking about them raising the interest rates. He says, they're going to need to raise them a lot more, even to have put a dent in inflation. But he says also if the Fed continues to facilitate federal deficits by monetizing the debt, the result will be an economic crisis caused by a collapse in the dollar's value and the rejection of its world reserve status. He says the crisis will lead to social unrest and violence, as well as increased popularity of authoritarian movements on both the left and the right.
Why would it do that? I always hear that. Like, if the dollar crashes and everybody's poor, do you really think people are going to be like, I still like Nancy Pelosi? Or are they going to be like, where am I going to get food? And, just not trusting the government because they did this. I don't understand.
I think the idea is in a crisis, people are even more likely to look to the so-called strongman, right? Like that's what they did in COVID.
It's different. COVID is a virus, so I could see. I couldn't see, but I understand a little bit why they were like, "Oh, we need to look to the government." I don't understand, but you know what I mean.
Same thing.
It's not. It's if the dollar crashes, it's the dollar's fault, and the dollar is the government.
They'll come up with another one. They'll come up with some other, the Amero or whatever it's going to be, right? Like they'll come up with
good old
something.
days when we used to be worried about the Amero.
Yeah.
I really hope some people or most people won't just be like, the dollar crashed because of the government, not taking care of it or doing anything right. Let's take the next thing they create.
It'll be the same old story, Bonnie. I mean, I hope you're right? I hope that this will somehow break the cycle. But the cycle has always been whichever party is going to be in power at the time of whenever this crash finally happens.
It'll be a controlled demolition.
The other party is going to say,
we could have done better.
If y'all had just elected the blanks, Republicans or Democrats, whoever it happens to be, well, then we would have taken care of this. And we have a plan. We, the Republicans or Democrats, have a plan.
We won't explain it in depth to you because, well, we don't actually have a plan. But
and then, of course, it will just continue on. All right, there's more coming up here. A little bit more from Ron Paul. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. And I know you guys wanted to have it out about taxation, I think.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get to that, too. In the remaining moments of Free Talk Live, which are coming up at 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live.
The Shire Free Church offers a sanctuary to those seeking an escape from state churches.
The Shire Free Church is an interfaith, diverse group of people that may not share identical theological beliefs.
As a member in or minister of the Shire Free Church, you are a sovereign individual and may be the faith of your choice.
We don't claim to have all of the answers.
We are open to all peaceful people.
We want to learn from each other.
What unifies the Shire Free Church and its diverse members is peace,
love,
and liberty. There are many paths to God, one for every individual.
The Shire Free Church does not define a specific path beyond these parameters that must be your foundation.
Peace as your way.
Love as your guide.
And liberty as your light.
Learn more at church.shiresociety.com.
That's church.shiresociety.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Moments are made here. The number is 603-283-6160. If you want to join us here, you may do so. It's Ian, Bonnie, and Mark. You can join us online anytime at freetalklive.com. We're on the final sentences of this Ron Paul story we've been trying to do for 3 days now, and it's finally here. He's talking about the, it's, by the way, ronpaulinstitute.org. It's his most recent story, The Mother of All Economic Crises, or a very recent one from just about 10 days ago. And talking about the federal government, of course, it's not just about the printing press with the Federal Reserve and its inflation. It's also about the fact that banks can also inflate the money supply by issuing loans to people for a home mortgage or a business loan. Or in the other case of the Federal Reserve, it's issuing the loans to the federal government that when the Federal Reserve increases interest rates, increases the amount of money that the taxpayers have to pay in interest to the Federal Reserve. Then you combine that with the Social Security so-called trust fund and the Medicare trust fund, which are going to run out of money within the next decade or so. It really is going to create, he says, a mother of all economic crises. And he says that the crises could last or could result in social unrest and violence and increased popularity of authoritarian movements on both the left and the right. This will lead to government crackdowns on civil liberties and increased government control of our economy, which we're already seeing happen. The only bright spot in this crisis will also fuel interest, or is this crisis will also fuel interest in the ideas of liberty and could even help bring about a return to limited constitutional government, free markets, individual liberty, and a foreign policy of peaceful trade with all. Those of us who know the truth have two responsibilities. The first is to make the necessary plans to ensure our families can survive in the forthcoming turmoil, and the second is to do all we can to introduce as many people as possible to the ideas of liberty, which of course is Ron Paul's lifelong mission. The man is a nonstop liberty and peace activist, even into his 1980s, into his 80s, but he's been doing it since before the 80s. And he's an incredible icon for a reason. The guy he's got so much energy, and he's a wonderful influence.
And his understanding of economics has made him relatively wealthy by means that the rest of the representatives out there didn't use. They just did insider trading.
Yes. Yeah.
He invested in gold buddies at the right times and things like that. I largely agree with what he has to say here.
Yeah, well, and it comes back around to something we were talking about before, which is having people of like mind in nearby, vicinity to you. Because if there is going to be this economic crisis he's talking about, if there is going to be violence, if there is going to be social unrest, then you got to have a social support network. You've got to have a community on which you can rely, whether it be to get some, vegetables or beef or trade it or whatever with people that you know and you care about, or whether it be for self-defense of a neighborhood or something like that. You've got to have like-minded people together. Now, something the two of you were talking about during the break has to do with, Mark, your idea of leaving the United States and going to somewhere like an island off of Honduras, for instance, and having a community there of like-minded people. And I think, Bonnie, you were saying you weren't so interested in that, and somehow that got to taxation.
It wasn't that. It was just that he said that if I don't like paying taxes, I should move. And I said there's nowhere that is a place I want to go that would make me not pay taxes there and would not steal from me there. He said, there's deserted islands. I was like, well, sorry, Mark, I don't want to live on a deserted island.
Right, and I think that's a point I would like to make, is that you've got to live somewhere, and likely that place has a government and has a tax structure. And if you move to a place, I say you opt into that tax structure. Here's my point. If you go to a restaurant and you come in and you sit down, you order food, and you eat the food, and then you prepare to leave, and they're like, excuse me, sir, could you pay for the bill? And you're like, hey, I didn't sign anything that said I'd pay a bill. I didn't, do any. But sir, it's understood. It's customary. If you come in, you eat, you pay.
You saw it on the menu.
Well,
you've got a
not
strong
necessarily.
argument.
Not every menu has prices on it. But
just for the sake of arguments, we'll say that you didn't see the menu.
But have you never gotten anything at a restaurant that had? Well, anyway, for the sake of argument, we'll say you didn't see the menu.
I think you have a strong argument, Mark. I mean, if you're going to a place, arguably, you're consenting to follow that place's rules.
But are you saying that I moved here because I wasn't born in New Hampshire? Because I would say I'm in a unique situation because my dad is in the military and I'm not really from anywhere. If they get to steal my dad from me for most of my life and make me move around every 3 years, then I think I should be able to live in any of the states.
So let me do a counter example that I think will really work well for you to understand my point on this one. So you say that it's okay for me to go find some terra nullius, someplace where no government claims, and set up my own little kingdom and pay for it and have a condo development and do that sort of thing, right? So I can make Mark's Freedom Kingdom and do that, right? That's okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I build a condominium complex, which has similar rules to condominium complexes in the United States, where you go there and you buy a condo for, maybe you buy it for $300,000, and then you have to pay a monthly fee to keep the building going, right? The hallways, the roof, maybe they pay for cable and power. Depends on the scenario, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine, right?
Yeah, and if people move there, they should pay you for the services.
And what if you and Ian buy a condo in this condo complex? You sign a contract that says you'll pay the fees that I say and all that stuff, and you'll follow my rules and whatever. And then you have a baby. I understand that there's some difficulties that this is a theoretical.
For the sake of argument,
for the sake of argument, you have a baby. Now, that baby doesn't have to pay tax, but you do. But what happens if the baby turns 18 years old and on the 18th birthday of that baby, you two die? Now, does that baby have to pay the homeowners association fees that are in my condominium complex, even though it was born there? It's actually born in the building. You got a midwife to come in and did a little midwifery magic, and you had a baby right there in the complex. The baby is actually standing, the person, the 18-year-old adult now, is standing in that spot. Is it male or female, Bunny?
I can't decide. Sorry.
Male. So the young male is standing there exactly in the spot he was born. And he says to me, I don't owe you anything. I didn't sign anything.
Yeah.
And you can't make me. And I say, buddy, this is ultimately the building of the people who live here, and you've got to pay or you've got to leave.
Oh, okay, I think that all sounds fair, Mark. And it's not anything like me living in America because it's not a private property that I'm living on.
Well, it is private property.
No, it's not. The government doesn't just own the land just because they say so.
But
no, they don't, and they don't maintain every single
That's
spot.
what homeownership is. I own the land because I say so.
That's like you're just thinking that I believe that I shouldn't have to pay for roads or shouldn't have to pay for healthcare service.
No, I'm
not one of
saying
those
that.
people. If it was private, I would be happy to pay the much cheaper price that it would be.
Could we not agree that the United States government and the largely state governments and governments around the world are inefficient groups of people that will skim money off the top for themselves and do a variety of things, but that in fact taxation fundamentally is not theft?
That's ridiculous.
I
It's
think
extortion.
that's ridiculous. Like because
Taxation
What
is
if I call my
extortion.
homeowners association fee taxes? What if I use
The
that
difference
word?
is violence. The difference is threats. It's
No,
extortion.
Yeah, because people
Taxes
can
are
move.
extortion.
If they'll kick you out of your house if you don't pay property tax.
They're
What's
criminal-
the difference between that and homeowners
you
association?
signed a contract to get into a homeowners association.
Right. The homeowners association is consensual, and the taxation and the state are not.
But you know
simple.
that the property tax where you live is part of the deal when you buy the house.
But there's nowhere else to go in the country which you live that there is no property tax.
You're on a prison colony, and you are
can
being
leave.
ruled. No, you
You can
cannot.
only leave
Let's
to
talk
more
about
places
prison.
that do that, or to a deserted island. And I don't think you should have to leave the place that you're from because there's a gang that lives here and says that you have to pay
All right,
them.
if you
and
guys
your
want to
son
have it out,
says he will not he will not pay tax because he's standing in the spot that he was born.
The other
If you
thing
guys
is
wanna
that
have-
those people aren't still alive from 1776 or whatever.
if you guys want to have it out on an after show, we can do that. I want to bring this person on the air. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead. Hello. Going once. Caller. Going twice.
Oh,
All right.
hi.
Yeah, real fast. 20
Hello.
seconds.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Ian, I'm terribly sorry to hear what happened to you today. I think
Thank you.
Massive injustice. And really, that's all I just wanted to say. I wanted to give my support.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I definitely
I think-
appreciate it.
I think that you're a freedom fighter for sure, and I admire your conviction.
What's your name, dude?
Harry.
Thank you, Harry, for the call tonight. I definitely appreciate hearing from you, and we're going to keep moving this forward as much as we can on into
I
the
look forward to
future.
hearing good progress.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know if you guys want to keep this going. We can.
I'm happy to talk about
You guys want
anything,
to keep
but,
this going after
you
show?
know.
Mark is
Okay.
just bullying me.
Maybe it'll appear as an after show on our podcast if this thing keeps going. If you're on the radio, then join us tomorrow night online in the meantime at freetalklive.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the